Chapter 81. Give me face. After playing around for a while, they left a pile of soft bullets on the ground. After cleaning up, Lu Sen looked at his watch and found that it was time for dinner. A few of them walked back to the castle chatting and laughing, planning to take action in the evening after having a full meal. In the corridor near the lobby, they met Neville, who was sitting on a bench reading 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi. Seeing a few people coming over, Neville put down the book and said, "Are you going to eat? Let's go together." Lu Sen and Harry looked at each other, but all three of them shook their heads slightly. Lu Sen knew that they didn't want to take the clumsy Neville to save the Philosopher's Stone. However, the one who has the best relationship with Nai is Lu Sen. They do morning exercises together, study together, and even fight together. Although the little fat boy looks stupid, he is very honest and has a strong sense of justice. Lu Sen thinks it is better to let him know. So Lu Sen told him about the plan they were going to carry out tonight. Neville frowned tightly. He felt that the credits deducted from the students were enough. If it was as serious as they said, why didn't they tell the professors? Several people took turns to persuade Neville, and although they dissuaded him from the idea of reporting the case, he still disagreed with their actions. Even after they finished their meal, Neville still hadn't made up his mind whether to follow along or report to the teacher. Seeing that Neville was unwilling to participate, they stopped talking. Hermione hurried back to the dormitory and said that she would look through the books before leaving to see if she could find any useful magic. Lu Sen entered his backpack and tidied up the space. When it was late at night and everyone was asleep, Lu Sen saw that the time was almost up, so he put on his heavy backpack and signaled everyone to get ready to go. Before leaving, Harry accidentally saw the flute that Hagrid gave him at Christmas. After thinking about it, he put it in his pocket. 4 figures in combat uniforms quietly walked out of the dormitory, and just as they were about to cross the common room, Neville chased out of the dormitory. He was wearing pajamas, blocking the exit of the common room with a determined look in his eyes and said in a fighting stance, I can't stand by and watch you break the school rules. Gryffindor can't afford to lose points anymore." In the past, the little fat man would only be laughed at if he took a fighting posture, but after doing morning exercises with Lu Sen for several months, his physical fitness has made great progress. The name Little Fat Man is just a habit of Lu Sen. In fact, the fat on Neville's body is almost gone, replaced by solid muscles. Running, boxing, and lifting weights with Lu Sen every day are not in vain. In a fight, Neville can even single-handedly fight Crabbe and Goyle. He can easily beat Malfoy with one hand. So the fighting starting stance he used was no joke. Not only was it full of momentum, it also really had combat effectiveness. Ron was a little panicked. He looked at Hermione with a questioning look, hoping that she could come forward and talk. Harry also looked at Lu Sen and Hermione anxiously, think of a solution. Hermione took a step forward and spoke slowly in a tone that was 2 beats softer than usual, "Neville, I know you are very brave and care about the grades in the academy. But we have to go tonight, so... I'm sorry, Neville." As she spoke, she drew her wand and quickly said, "Petrificus Totalis." An ice blue spell instantly came out from the tip of Hermione's wand. Neville, who was hit, immediately stood at attention, his hands involuntarily placed at his sides, and his body was stiff as if frozen. Neville's eyes widened. He had completely lost control of his body and then lost balance and fell backwards. Lu Sen sighed and quickly supported him. "Come and help." Harry and Ron quickly lifted Neville's feet, and the 3 of them placed him on the largest sofa in the lounge. They also considerately covered him with a blanket and helped him close his eyes. Lu Sen patted the timid yet stubborn roommate and whispered, "We won't be penalized, just sleep here." After saying that, Lu Sen took out an invisibility talisman first, injected magic power into it and slapped it on his body. With a flash of transparent ripples, Lu Sen's figure completely disappeared into the air. "You 3, put on your invisibility cloaks now, so you won't be spotted in the corridor. And you need to get used to the feeling of walking together in a crowd of 3, so don't show your feet." After Harry and the other 2 huddled together and made sure they were completely invisible, the 4 of them opened the door of the lounge and headed towards the corridor on the 4th floor. Just as he was about to leave, Lu Sen's ears suddenly moved. Quack! It's Neville's toad. Lu Sen's heart moved, he went back and put it in his arms, then walked out of the lounge. When passing a corridor, they heard the meow of Mrs. Norris's cat. They walked lightly and waited until the kitten went far away before they breathed a sigh of relief. Ron was whispering in his cloak whether he could take advantage of his invisibility to kick the annoying cat. His suggestion was immediately responded to by Hermione. She twisted the flesh on Ron's waist hard. But at this moment, a question came from mid-air, "Who is there? Come out." "It's Peeves with only one head left," it said excitedly. "There is something invisible there. Are you a ghoul, a revenant, or a student kid?" Harry and the other two were immediately nervous. Peeves was an even more annoying guy than Mrs. Norris, and now his biggest hobby was to catch little wizards who made mistakes. "You're not talking, are you? There are sneaky invisible things running around." Hey, wait. I'll go report to Filch." The three little ones in the invisibility cloak panicked. When Harry was thinking of a countermeasure quickly, Lu Sen spoke first. "It's me, Lu Sr." The three kids were stunned instantly. No way? They were walking into a trap? They thought Lu Sen was going to sacrifice himself so they could escape. The Peeves in the air was startled instantly. It immediately put away the smiling expression on its face and said in panic, "Master Lu. Master Lu Sen. Master Lu Sen. It's you. You are not in the dormitory." But Lu Sen didn't let it continue. He interrupted, "Of course I came out for something important to do. You don't want to make it public, understand?" Peeves' forehead was sweating. He said flatteringly, "I understand. I understand. It's all Peeves' fault for being too stupid. He didn't see you, sir." "Oh, of course, you have great magical powers, so of course I couldn't see you." He. Lu Sen whispered, "Okay, go patrol somewhere else." "Yes, Master Lu Sen." As it said that, it quickly returned to a high place, and turned back as it floated away and said, "I wish you good luck in your work, Master. I won't disturb you anymore." After that, it passed through a wall and ran away quickly. The three people in the cloaks breathed a sigh of relief. Ron praised, "You're amazing. So cool. You're the only one who can control Peeves." The road ahead was unobstructed, and they soon arrived at the door in the corridor on the 4th floor. When they arrived at the door and heard what was happening, they immediately had a bad feeling. "That's music," said Ron. Several people quickly pushed open the creaking door, and sure enough, the three-headed dog Lu Wei was sleeping soundly, with 3 pairs of eyes tightly closed and 3 loud snorings. It was the first time that Lu Sen saw the appearance of the three-headed dog Fluffy, and he admired Hagrid even more. Each of its heads is at least as big as a classroom podium. Its body almost fills the entire room. If it raises its head, it will even touch the ceiling. There was a harp playing automatically in the room, so Hermione said confidently, "Look. Snape must have put it here. He has entered the trapdoor." Lu Sen, okay, whoever you say is the one, I won't argue with you." Chapter 82. Harry and the other two took off their invisibility cloaks and studied the trapdoor under the three-headed dog's paw. Hermione's observation skills are still very good. The last time they accidentally entered here, when Harry and Ron were scared out of their wits, she found Fluffy guarding the entrance on the ground. The sleeping three-headed dog Fluffy was dreaming about something and was smacking his lips, but one of its big paws happened to cover the trapdoor. Harry tried to move Fluffy's big paw, but found it surprisingly heavy, so Ron stepped forward to lend a hand. The two were still struggling, and they didn't dare to make any big movements, so they could only move carefully. Hermione was a little anxious. She whispered, "Lu Sen, come and help too? You are very strong." When she turned around, she saw nothing behind her. "Lu Sen? Where are you?" Hermione asked tentatively. She was even worried that the other party might not follow her in. But the next moment, Lu Sen's voice rang out in the air, "I'm here." Hermione breathed a sigh of relief, but immediately became angry and said, "What are you doing? Come and help." Lu Sen, who was invisible, smiled and said, "Can you play axe, oh no, the flute? Or the harp, piano, or violin?" Hermione was confused and said, "Why should I know those? But I can play the flute a little." "Oh, wait, are you worried that the magic on the harp will fail?" As soon as he finished speaking, something suddenly seemed missing in the room. Even Harry and Ron were stunned for a moment. They raised their heads and saw the three-headed dog, which had previously closed its eyes, twitching its nose as if it had smelled a stranger. Its eyes were also trembling and were about to open. Seeing this, Harry quickly took out his flute from his pocket and played a stumbling tune. But luckily for him, Lou Williams wasn't picky at all, and even if Harry's music wasn't in tune, it still worked great. The three-headed dog, which had originally started to have a ferocious look on its face, instantly relaxed its brows, hummed with enjoyment, and then began to snore again. Ron and Harry are right under the three-headed dog's head. If the three-headed dog wakes up, neither of them will be enough to fill the dog's teeth. Harry didn't dare to stop for a moment. He signaled for the others to continue opening the trapdoor. With the help of the invisible man Lu Sen, Ron successfully opened the door under the dog's paw this time. They looked down and saw that it was very dark, without a single ray of light. Ron looked around but found that there was no ladder. He swallowed and asked, "Looks like we can only jump down and give it a try. Lu Sen, you go first." Lu Sen in the air said decisively, "I'll cover you, you go first." Ron had no choice but to look at the only girl in the field, Hermione. "Would you like to go down first?" "No. I don't want to." Hermione glared at Ron and answered very straightforwardly. At this time, Harry, who was playing the flute, waved one hand in front of Ron's eyes, pointed at the flute in his mouth, and then pointed back and forth at Hermione and himself. Ron, his good friend, immediately understood, "You mean let Hermione continue to blow, and then you go down first." Harry nodded immediately, and before Hermione could respond, he took the flute from his mouth and handed it over. Hermione blushed. This is not indirect. But the three-headed dog suddenly became manic, with fangs showing at the corners of its mouth, and its eyes were about to open in a daze. Without having time to think, Hermione grabbed the flute and started playing. She didn't play as well as Harry, but the three-headed dog immediately quieted down after hearing the music and fell asleep again. Harry slid his legs under the dark door and took a few deep breaths in preparation. After making up his mind, he turned around and said to the others, "If anything happens to me later, don't worry about me. Go to the owl shed and find Hedwig immediately. Ask her to send a letter to Dumbledore." Ron clenched his fists and nodded emphatically. Hermione, who was playing the flute, also had tears in her eyes and looked at Harry deeply. Just as Harry was about to jump down, they suddenly heard a crackling sound. When I turned around, I saw an exquisite music box on the ground behind me, and an invisible hand was winding it up. "Harry? Ron? Hermione playing the flute." The next second, the clear and beautiful Hogwarts theme song sounded. Hermione put down the flute and angrily said to the air, "Did you do this on purpose? Why didn't you tell me you had a music box earlier? You must have done this on purpose. You can predict the future." Hermione became more and more angry as she spoke, took 2 steps forward and kicked the left side of the music box. But he didn't kick anything, instead he staggered and almost fell. "I'm here. Haha. Come and catch me. If you catch me, I'll let Harry and you do that." Hermione was furious. She recalled the time when Lu Sen teased her in order to find out who Nicholas Flamel was. That time with Harry. "You. Go to hell." Hermione punched the right side of the music box with hatred, but unfortunately she got nothing. "Okay, stop messing around. I'll let you and Ron next time, okay?" Ron, who was confused, suddenly felt a chill on his head, as if he had missed something important. Lu Sen, who came to the cave entrance, patted Harry on the shoulder and said, "You did a good job. You are very brave. I will take the lead next. We should finish beating Quirrell as soon as possible so that we can go back to the dormitory and sleep." As he said that, Lu Sen took out the thunder wand, but counting the number of times, there was only one last time. To be on the safe side, I switched to a poplar wand, suitable for combat. Fluorescent glow. The tip of the chopstick-shaped spare magic wand suddenly emitted a flashlight-like light, but under Lu Sen's control, the light gradually retracted and gradually became a round ball emitting soft white light lighting ball mode. With a gentle flick, the ball of light floated up, and then flew towards the deep underground under Lu Sen's control. Lu Sen saw that the ball of light was flying deeper and deeper. In the end, even if he adjusted the lighting range to the maximum, he still couldn't see the situation below. Hiss! What kind of structure is underneath? Why is it so deep? Is this scientific? After complaining, Lu Sen remembered this plot, but it seems that he didn't remember it being so deep. This is so scary. Seeing that several people were looking at him eagerly, he had to force a smile, thinking that Dumbledore would never harm Harry, right? Then he took a deep breath and jumped down resolutely. Ah! Lu Sen felt that this height was like bungee jumping. After several seconds, he landed on a soft object with a plop. Looking up, the light from the trapdoor was now only the size of a 2-inch photo. The height was far more than 4 stories. It must have fallen somewhere underground. Lu Sen controlled the light ball to float towards him, and saw a large black vine-like plant under him, which was wriggling like a snake under the illumination of the light ball. Devil's Vine. Fear of light. Soft and tough, likes to wrap around its prey like a snake, the more it struggles, the tighter it gets. On the contrary, if it relaxes, it will be ignored. Chapter 83. Lu Sen quickly lowered the brightness of the light ball to the lowest level to avoid disturbing the devil vine, which would cause it to fall down prematurely. At this time, Harry's voice came from above, "Lu Sen. How are you? Don't worry, just jump. It's fun. The ground is soft." The 3 people up there breathed a sigh of relief, and after getting Lu Sen's assurance, they jumped down one after another. But soon, Ron panicked and said, "What is this? I'm entangled. Help." Seeing Ron struggling hard, Harry also panicked. As soon as he exerted force, more vines immediately wrapped around him. And as the two struggled, they became tighter and tighter. The performance of the panic duo made Lu Sen laugh out loud, but Hermione quickly discovered the key. "This is the devil vine." Ron huffed, "Oh great! Now I know what's killing me. This will really help us." "Shut up. I'm trying to figure it out." She remained motionless, pretending to be a stone. Then she said in a calm tone, "Can you guys just be quiet for a moment? Just stay still. Calm down. Take a deep breath." But Ron's voice sounded like he was about to cry. "Just try to calm down. I can hardly breathe. Lu Sen? Help me." Lu Sen knew that there was no danger, so in order to watch the excitement for a while longer, Lu Sen struggled a few times every time he was about to sink. So Hermione became the first person to be ignored and let go by the Devil's Ivy. When Harry and the other boy saw Hermione being eaten, they immediately struggled with all their strength, but of course it was in vain. But soon, Hermione's voice came from under the 3 people. "Don't struggle. Just stay still and you'll be safe. I've fallen down. There are no devil vines here." But Harry and Ron, who were surrounded by fear, couldn't listen at all. They were strangled to the point of suffocation. Ron came to the rescue, "Hermione. Think of a way. We can't breathe." Hearing her teammates' cries for help, Hermione panicked. She quickly started to think and recall the knowledge about the devil vine. Let me think about it." "Devil's Ivy," Professor Sprout said in class. "Devil's Ivy likes dark and humid places." Harry hurriedly said, "Then burn it with fire." But Hermione jumped around anxiously, twisting her hands anxiously and saying, "But there is no firewood here." Lu Sen burst out laughing, "Firewood? You said firewood. Ha ha ha. Wait a minute, I'll come to you and laugh again." The lighting ball floating next to Lu Sen, emitting a faint light, suddenly became brighter. The devil vine twisted and twitched immediately like a snake encountering fire. In a few breaths, it pulled away all the vines that were wrapped around the 3 people. The 3 of them fell down one after another. Ron and Harry landed on their butts, while Lu Sen landed nimbly and steadily. After withdrawing the lighting ball, Lu Sen saw the stunned Hermione, then he covered his mouth and laughed out loud again. Ron also imitated Hermione's panicked voice and said, "But there is no firewood here." He sighed and continued, "Hermione, look at what you are saying. You are a witch." "Fortunately, there is Lu Sen." Hermione said angrily, "He clearly knew it was a devil vine. But he just watched everyone get entangled and didn't do anything. He just wanted to watch everyone's fun." "Is that Lu Sen?" "Yeah, I just want to watch the fun. What's wrong? Can't I ease the tense atmosphere? There's no firewood here." "Pfft. Sorry, I'm professionally trained and I won't laugh easily, hee. Unless I can't help it. Ha 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 ha." Hermione immediately clenched her fists and was about to hit someone. Lu Sen hurriedly asked, "Listen. What's that sound?" Several people pricked up their ears immediately, but they heard nothing except the sound of dripping water. Hermione thought Lu Sen was trying to change the subject, but she saw Lu Sen taking the lead and walking forward. "I see a light ahead." Several people hurriedly caught up. They walked down the stone-paved downhill road. The further they walked, the more frightened they became. Where were they? Some of them even felt like they had arrived at the underground vault of Gringotts. Ron, do you think there will be a dragon ahead? Harry nodded in agreement. He was worried about this too. However, what greeted them was a room with a very high dome. The room was brightly lit and there was a kind of glittering bird flying high in the sky. At the end of the room is a thick wooden door, which you will need to pass through if you want to move forward. A few people examined the door and found nothing there except 4 flying brooms. Hermione fired an Ulahu open at the door, but of course found nothing. After Lu Sen distributed the AK-47 to several people, he commanded, "Everyone has it, split into pieces mode, target, wooden door, free to open red." As soon as the words fell, the 4 people's magic 47 spewed out a burst of spells. The power of each shot was more ferocious than a real gun. After a few seconds, Lu Sen was the first to raise his fist and signal everyone to cease fire. He walked forward and saw that the wooden door was covered with bullet holes and cracks, and wood chips were flying all over the ground. But the wooden door is still standing, and even the damaged parts are recovering rapidly. This must be the work of Professor Flitwick. There are defensive and repairing spells on the wooden door. There is also a spell to prevent unlocking. It seems that taking shortcuts is not going to work. In fact, Lu Sen really wanted to activate the Thunder Wand and chop down the wooden door with a sword. There was only one last use left. He had no choice but to hold back. At this time, Harry finally discovered the correct way to open the door, which was to ride on the flying broom and grab the key. That's right, upon closer inspection, what were flying in the sky were actually keys with wings. Harry was the first to ride on the flying broom, followed by Ron and Hermione. After analyzing the wooden door, they concluded that the target was probably a heavy, ancient key. The 3 of them flew into the air and began to move through the keys, trying to find the right one. Lu Sen was struggling. He could use the flying skill of flying objects to fly by standing on the flying broom, but facing such a large group of agile birds, his unskilled flying skill would not have much chance of success. Thinking of the bird, he suddenly had an idea. What can defeat magic? Magic, of course. If you can't defeat it, then join it. So Lu Sen used his spare magic wand to cast a spell and cut the remaining flying broom into 18 pieces. It's not that Lu Sen couldn't help but take revenge on the flying broom, but that he had another use for it. Lu Sen took out the number 5 firwood magic wand and cast a transformation spell on the broken brooms on the ground. Soon the transformation of 18 falcons was completed. Target. Old, bulky key. Go. At the command, 18 falcons raised their right wings and saluted Lu Sen. Lu Sen also nodded and returned a standard military salute. Then an aerial competition began. As the nemesis of small birds, the falcon is not only extremely fast, but also agile and flexible. In a short while, it locked onto an old key with a damaged wing. After several rounds of being surrounded, Old Key was captured by the falcons and brought to Lu Sen. Harry and his 2 companions were still searching among the flock of birds. Suddenly the keys began to attack them frantically. Lu Sen shouted to the 3 of them, "The door is open. You can play Quidditch later when you have time. Let's get down to business first." Harry Trio, number UN%, and Chapter 84. After passing through the wooden door, Lu Sen and his companions were shocked by the scene before them. Not far from them, there stood a row of statues made of sand, each with a different shape and holding a weapon. The ground was covered with thick yellow sand, and there were broken walls, trees, and streams in front of them. In the distance, a 2-story city defense tower could be seen with a blue flag erected on it. If the wooden door behind him hadn't been there, Lu Sen would even have thought he had walked into the wrong set. In his memory, there was no such item in the few small levels, right? Shouldn't it be a real-life wizard chess? Looking more closely at the statues, I felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Some were wearing heavy armor, some were holding bows and arrows, and some... Lu Sen's eyes suddenly widened. Ron and Harry beside him also showed shocked expressions. This is a Muggle war. We have to win the game to pass. Lu Sen said this while deeply admiring the professors. This is keeping up with the times. Lu Sen, Harry, and Ron are all good at playing Muggle wars, and they only feel novel about it and are eager to try it. Harry tried to pass through the statues, but the statues that were originally standing still suddenly drew their weapons and forced him back. Looks like we can only play one round. The heavily armored soldiers take the lead in the charge. The archers provide support from the side. The rest of you follow. Ron tried to control them, but found that they completely ignored his instructions. He wondered, how do I start? They don't listen to my instructions. Lu Sen stepped forward and thought, we have to replace the soldiers. I'll be the archer. As soon as he finished speaking, the archer statue suddenly turned into yellow sand, leaving only his bow and armor. Harry and the other two looked at each other and finally understood the real way to play. They couldn't help but swallow their saliva. The statue is made of sand, but the weapons and armor are made of steel. If we fight with the enemy, it will cost lives. However, thinking that someone had already passed the three-headed dog and other levels before them, and thinking of the Philosopher's Stone that was in danger, Harry made up his mind and took a step forward to replace one of the statues. After Ron and Hermione had chosen their arms and put on their weapons and armor, the sound of horns and shouts of killing suddenly rang out in the distance. A dozen soldiers stood out from the city defense tower opposite, banging their weapons fiercely. Ron panicked, why are there so many of them? There are only 4 of us. Lu Sen looked around and saw a set of numbers above his head. He tried to shout, by 2 spearmen. As soon as he finished speaking, the numbers above his head decreased rapidly, and then 2 streams of sand immediately surged up on the sand beside them, and quickly transformed into 2 soldiers holding spears and shields. Ron said excitedly, let me do it, let me do it. Following Ron's instructions, they added 2 archers and lightly armored swordsmen. Just when Ron was about to shout start with confidence, Lu Sen stopped him. Wait, you guys aren't really going to go up and chop it up yourself, are you? I plan to follow the soldier. The gold coin on the head has disappeared. This means that in this enlarged version of the Muggle War, we cannot replenish troops midway. So, if we remove the 4 of us, what do you think the chances of winning are? Ron pondered for a moment and said, I'm at least 60% sure I can win. I specially matched the troops. I can completely defeat the opponent. But at this point he also realized the problem. This was not a game, and he couldn't start over. If they really went up to fight the Sandman soldiers with knives, their small bodies would be a piece of cake. But Harry said anxiously, but we don't have time to waste. The Philosopher's Stone cannot fall into Voldemort's hands. But Lu Sen smiled evilly and said, I have a 100% way to win. As he spoke, he raised his gun. So the whole style of the game changed. Focus fire on the left side. Cover our shield soldiers. Very good. Free shooting next. Ron, shoot down the enemy archers. Ta-ta-ta. 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 The 4 of them were carrying the modified AK and were able to move forward unhindered. The enemy soldiers were shot into sieves before they even got close. Originally, these soldiers and scenes were equipped with automatic repair spells to prevent intruders from breaking in without following the rules. However, the firing rate of the modified AK is really unreasonable. When the professors designed it, they never thought that someone could fire 8 rounds of the shattering spell in 1 second. Even 8 rounds of the curse stop in 1 second would be enough to make these magical creations suffer. Unlike the wooden doors encountered before, these soldiers made of sand are not very strong. They are designed to fight against the soldiers of the challengers. So, just like strolling in the garden, they beat the enemy into a mess without any effort. Even their own soldiers didn't have a chance to strike with a single sword. When Lu Sen pulled out the enemy's flag, a door next to him appeared. Seeing Harry and Ron remain silent, Lu Sen asked in confusion, what's wrong? Why are you so unhappy? We won easily. I know, it's just, it feels like something's not right. Harry said with a depressed look on his face. You want to win this game fairly, right? Seeing the two nodded, Lu Sen continued, wrong. You are wrong to think so. Facing the puzzled looks of several people, Lu Sen said, what is our purpose this time? Save the Philosopher's Stone. Stop Voldemort. So do we still need to care about the method? We only need the result. And we are not here to break through. We are the guardians of Hogwarts. The advocates of order. The lamplighters in the darkness. Ahem. Hermione on the side couldn't hear anything anymore. She just felt a sense of middle school mentality coming towards her. Lu Sen said, so, we are the back-end administrators. It is reasonable to use unconventional means. Okay. Keep going. After making sure that his teammates had sorted out their ammunition and adjusted their mindsets, Lu Sen opened the door to the next room. The next second, a foul odor hit me in the face. Lu Sen was nauseated by the smoke. Among the people present, his 5 senses were the most sensitive. Naturally, the damage he suffered was higher. Lu Sen quickly waved his wand and cast a bubble head spell on himself. This spell is very practical. It can not only isolate odors and create a constant supply of oxygen, but can even be used underwater. It can even be used as a diving helmet. Seeing Lu Sen in the bubble with a look of relief on his face, Harry and the other 2 immediately held their breath and started dancing. Lu Sen didn't say much, and cast 3 bubble head curses, saving the 3 people who were suffering. With plenty of fresh air, the 4 finally turned their attention to the room. There lies a giant monster. The eye-irritating smell comes from it. Several people checked carefully, but saw that the giant monster on the ground was motionless, with a bloody mess on its head, and it was already cold. Several people looked at each other, and Hermione said, "This giant monster is much taller than the one in the toilet. But Snape killed it." Lu Sen did not comment on this and thought to himself, yes, you are right. After some discussion, they found that each level was carefully prepared by the professors. The devil vines were obviously placed here by Professor Sprout, the key was the magic cast by Professor Flitwick, the chess pieces were the work of Professor McGonagall, and the troll was obviously placed here by Quirrell. Then the next level should be Snape's level. Chapter 85. The few of them continued to move forward, and finally there was no stench in the next room. However, to their surprise, there were neither mechanisms nor monsters here, only a table. But when they stepped into the room, a purple flame barrier immediately emerged, blocking their way back. At the other end of the room, a black flame barrier rose in front of the door leading to the next room. Both flames were very unusual and looked very difficult to deal with. They had no choice but to turn their attention to the table, on which were placed 7 bottles of various shapes. Apart from that there was a piece of parchment covered with words. 4 heads came forward and saw the words written on it. "Danger is in front of you, safety lies behind. There are 2 of us who can help you. Drink them, 1 leads you forward. The other sends you back to where you came from. 2 contained nettle wine. 3 are killers, waiting in line. Make your choice, unless you wish to be delayed here forever. We also provide 4 clues to help you choose. First, no matter how cunningly the poison hides. In fact, they all stand to the left of the nettle wine. Second, the contents of the bottles at the left and right ends are different. None of them will work for you if you want to move forward. Third, you'll find that bottles are not all equal in size. Death is not hidden among giants and dwarfs. Fourth, second from the left and second from the right. Although they look different, the taste is the same." Harry and Ron were suddenly overwhelmed and really confused. Hermione smiled and said, "Great. This is a logical reasoning question. Many great wizards have no reasoning ability at all. This question will trap those wizards who can't figure out the situation. Not to mention wizards who don't like to use logical reasoning to think about problems. This kind of question is a trap-type question in China's civil service examination. Although the derivation process of this question is not difficult after mastering the correct solution ideas, it will be a waste of time. This type of questions are usually left for the end in the civil service examination, and are only solved when there is extra time, otherwise it feels like a waste of time." Lu Sen couldn't help but praise Snape in his heart. It was really amazing that he could write such a question. Hermione's eyes lit up. She read it carefully over and over again, using her clever brain to think about the corresponding relationships. Lu Sen, who was itching to solve this kind of problem, did not use any cheating methods to force his way through the level. Instead, he took out a pen and paper and started to list. Assuming 1 is the forward medicine, then 2 and may 6th be wine or poison. Since poison must be to the left of wine, 2, 4, and 6 are poison, 3 and 5 are wine, and 7 is the return medicine. However, the maximum and minimum cannot be poison, so this assumption does not hold. Cross it out and let 2 be the forward medicine. Since 2 is equal to 6, but there is only 1 forward medicine, this rule does not hold. Cross it out and start again, let 3 be the forward medicine. Exhaustive method, list all possibilities. Soon the 7 possibilities were listed, and Lu Sen successfully solved the only answer. Hermione hasn't figured out the answer yet, but from her excited expression and shining eyes, it's not hard to tell that she's almost there. This nerd has a pretty good brain, he can actually figure it out in his head without pen and paper. At this time, Hermione clapped her hands and said happily, "I know. The potion that can lead to the next door is this one. Lu Sen took out the smallest bottle and asked. Hermione's expression froze instantly. She said with a little frustration, yes. This is the bottle. How did you know? Lu Sen opened his notes and showed the well-organized derivation process to Miss Know-It-all. Although my brain isn't as quick as yours, I can use stupid methods. Lu Sen said with a smile. Hermione was not angry this time, but instead seemed to have found someone with the same interests as her. She has always sympathized with students who are diligent and hardworking, but Lu Sen seemed absent-minded in class except for the first week of school. Harry picked up the most inconspicuous little bottle, which contained only enough potion for a small sip. It seems that there is only enough for one person. Let me go. I'm afraid I will have to face the person who stole the Philosopher's Stone later. Harry said with a firm look. He asked again, Hermione, which one is the medicine that can return? Hermione picked up a round bottle on the table and said, this is it. There was quite a bit of potion in the bottle. But Hermione immediately worried, Harry. We can't let you face Snape alone. That's too dangerous. We can send one person to write a letter to the headmaster. The remaining 3 will stay here to ambush Snape. But Harry had made up his mind. He was worried that there might be other exits ahead, or what if the person who stole the Philosopher's Stone directly used it to revive Voldemort? At his insistence, Hermione gave Harry a hug reluctantly and told him to be careful. However, Lu Sen interrupted and said, actually, we can go together. Several people immediately showed puzzled expressions. Is it possible to pass through the flame without drinking the potion? Lu Sen smiled and said, I have a backpack with me. All Harry needs to do is drink the medicine and carry me over. Ron's eyes immediately lit up and he said, then I'll go too. We'll hide in the backpack together. Let Hermione go back and deliver the letter. Hermione immediately pinched Ron and said, why should I go to deliver the letter? There's enough space in the backpack anyway. I'll go too. Harry felt warm at heart when he saw his friends risking their lives to accompany him. But he still denied Hermione's idea. Hermione, someone must go back to deliver the letter. We don't know what will happen next. We must inform Dumbledore. The Philosopher's Stone must not fall into Voldemort's hands. Listen to me. You and Ron go back. It's enough to have Lu Sen accompany me. He is powerful, don't you believe it? Lu Sen punched Harry and laughed, you want to talk about my destructive power? Haha. Okay. Hurry up and act. Time waits for no one. Ron. Protect Hermione. If the mechanisms are reset when you go back, it will depend on you. You two go back to the key room and ride your brooms back to the castle. Then go find Professor McGonagall immediately. Just tell the truth. She will find the headmaster. After that, Lu Sen handed the vial of potion to Harry and instructed. Put me down immediately after you pass through the flames. Don't panic if you encounter danger. Your blood carries the blessing your mother gave you. Voldemort cannot touch you. Remember my words. Just find a chance to touch Quirrell with your hands. After saying that, he waved to a few people and got into the backpack. Harry grabbed the backpack and tried to put it on his back, but he pulled it and it didn't move. Lu Sen. Is your backpack out of order? Why is it so heavy? Harry picked it up with great effort and finally put it on his back. Lu Sen's voice came from the gap in the backpack, sorry Harry. I bought a few experimental materials recently. It's normal that they are a little heavy. Harry shook his head, a little impressed that Lu Sen could carry such a heavy backpack all night and act as if nothing had happened. He picked up the small medicine bottle and shook it, then tilted his head back and drank it in one gulp. A chill instantly swept through his body, and Harry couldn't help shivering, this thing is so cold. At this time, Hermione also drank a sip of the potion that could bring her back. She shuddered and said, this one is like ice, too. It's freezing cold. Ron couldn't wait to take the bottle of medicine from Hermione and took a gulp, and he was also freezing. After both sides wished each other good luck, Hermione and Ron were the first to pass through the purple flames, and then Harry also stepped towards the black flames. Chapter 86. Harry expected the flames to be hot, but due to the potion, they ignored him. He could see the flames licking at him, but he couldn't feel any warmth. After passing through the flames, Harry saw a staircase leading down, and guessed that the next room was there. He put down his backpack, patted it and said, okay. We're here. The backpack opened as it sounded, but Harry waited for a few seconds but did not see Lu Sen. He was just wondering when he heard the other person's voice in his ear, "You know and I know, this way we have a better chance. From now on, you pretend to be alone." Harry's eyes lit up and he nodded. Then he began to walk down the stairs carefully. When Harry reached the bottom room, he finally saw the man who stole the Philosopher's Stone. It was indeed Quirrell. Lu Sen was right. How great it is that it's not Snape. Harry thought happily. Harry then noticed that Quirrell was standing in front of a mirror, and that mirror happened to be familiar to Harry, as it was the one that brought him fond memories, the mirror of East. At this time, Quirrell turned his head and said to Harry playfully, "I was just wondering if I would meet you here, Potter. You don't seem surprised at all." Harry subconsciously looked back, but Lu Sen had already become invisible. Thinking of what Lu Sen had told him, he immediately turned back, shook his head, and said in a pretended nervous tone, "I'm still a little surprised. I thought it would be Snape who stole the Philosopher's Stone." Quirrell turned around, stretched out his fingers and snapped them, and a high wall of fire suddenly emerged behind Harry, completely blocking his retreat. And a rope appeared out of nowhere, wrapped around Harry's body like a snake, and tied him up tightly. After doing all this, Quirrell smiled contemptuously, "You said Snape just now? He really doesn't look like a good person. He's like a giant bat flying around. However, it is precisely because of him that no one doubts the poor, and stuttering Professor Quirrell." Harry's mind was working fast. Quirrell was looking in the mirror. Maybe Dumbledore had hidden the Philosopher's Stone in some way. And the mirror was the key. Therefore, he had to say something to divert the other party's attention and delay until Dumbledore arrived. So Harry tried hard to recall, and talked to Quirrell about the encounter with the troll in the ladies' room, the curse on the Quidditch field, eavesdropping on Snape's conversation, and what happened in the Forbidden Forest. Quirrell, who thought he was just one step away from victory, was in a very good mood. While looking in the mirror, he told Harry all his doubts and all the efforts he had made for the Philosopher's Stone in the past year in a contemptuous and boastful tone. When mentioning Lu Sen, Quirrell sneered sinisterly and said, "If it weren't for that damn Lu Sen, I would have let you fall to your death from your broom during the Quidditch match. But that bastard actually dared to interrupt my spell with his disgusting stench. And he disturbed my great and noble master. I must kill that kid." Quirrell became more and more angry as he spoke, his eyes ferocious as he said, "I'm going to use dozens of heart-drilling and bone-drilling spells on him. And then slowly remove his limbs. Tell me, Potter. What kind of freak is Lu Sen? How can a mere first-year student use such a powerful spell?" "Why?" Harry shook his head quickly. He wanted to know the answer to this question too. I don't know." Lu Sen, who was watching the fun from the side, had been looking for an opportunity since Quirrell started saying bad things about him, and finally made a move when the other party was questioning Harry. Lu Sen stood to the side of the mirror, condensed his thoughts into a line, and instantly issued an order to the working mirror. "Lu Sen, mirror. It's me. You do this. This. And then this. Do you understand? Hurry up. Mirror, it's you again. I'm so impressed. I just want to be a beautiful mirror quietly. Why am I so unlucky?" Quirrell turned back to his study of the mirror. He said to himself, "What's wrong with this mirror? I can see the Philosopher's Stone. It's in my hand. But how can I get it? Shatter the mirror." At this moment, the picture in the mirror slowly changed. In the mirror, Quirrell held the Philosopher's Stone tightly in his hand, with greed and determination in his eyes. Then he chanted a spell, and the Philosopher's Stone suddenly emitted a charming red light. Quirrell in the mirror reached behind his head and pulled, and the Voldemort attached to him was immediately peeled off. Under the red light of the Philosopher's Stone, it quickly shrank and finally turned into a handful of yellow sand. Then the scene quickly changed. Quirrell in the mirror put on a domineering cloak, and countless wizards bowed down in front of him. He became a new generation of powerful Dark Lord. After Quirrell saw the scene in the mirror, the excitement on his face lasted for less than a second before being replaced by horror. "No, no, no. What is this? This mirror is broken. I don't have such an idea. I don't." Quirrell said to himself with a trembling voice. He immediately took out his wand and was about to destroy the mirror. But at this moment, the voice behind his head sounded. "Very good. Very good. It seems that my servant has his own ambitions and ideas. No wonder he hasn't got the Philosopher's Stone for so long. The voice was cold and hoarse. It was Voldemort who was attached to the back of Quirrell's head. Quirrell was so frightened that he fell to his knees. He panicked and said, "Master! My kind and great master! I am loyal to you. I don't know what happened just now. The mirror must be broken. How could I? How could I dare to have such an idea?" But what responded to him was Voldemort's cold laughter. He. "I dare not, but that doesn't mean I don't want to. This is the mirror of East. It can reflect people's most urgent and desired wishes. It seems, you are not very honest, Quirrell." Quirrell was so frightened that his face turned pale. He continued to explain himself incoherently and used all the words he could think of to flatter his master, but unfortunately Voldemort was never a magnanimous person. "You know what to do. Hurry up. And continue your mission. This is your last chance." When Chi Luo heard these words, his whole body seemed to be frozen, twitching uncontrollably every few seconds. "Don't let me down again. Hurry." At Voldemort's urging, Quirrell shuddered violently. He took out his wand tremblingly, then pointed it at himself resolutely, suppressing his extreme fear and shouting, "Crucio!" Then there was a terrible scream. Chi Luo was twisted and trembling in pain, and he shrank uncontrollably into a shrimp. After a full half-minute, he stood up tremblingly, as if he had just had a serious illness. At this time, Chi Luo's face was pale, and sweat was pouring down his face as if he had just been caught in the rain. His legs were still shaking and his body twitched from time to time because of the pain he had just felt. Harry, who was tied up next to him, was stunned. Why did he commit self-harm? Voldemort's voice sounded again, "Now you should realize your mistake. Then continue to get the Philosopher's Stone for me. This is your chance to make amends." Chi Luo even stuttered involuntarily due to the nervousness. Yes. My master. You will always be the greatest existence in my heart. I worship you from the bottom of my heart. I am willing to dedicate everything to you." Quirrell returned to the mirror and looked at the image in it tremblingly, hoping to see clues about the Philosopher's Stone in it. But what was shown in the mirror was a tall wizard without a nose. Quirrell frowned in confusion. Who was this guy so ugly? But suddenly, he realized why that person's temperament and eyes were familiar. That was Voldemort. His master. "Master! I saw you. You regained your body. So unique. Giving me an incomparable sense of oppression. You are so tall. So energetic. Okay, what else? Where is the Philosopher's Stone?" Voldemort said impatiently. "Let me see. Oh. I see it. The Philosopher's Stone is in your hand. You become the Minister of Magic. The Death Eaters are back too. They are worshipping you. I see many beauties around you. They are vying for your favor. And is that me? You pulled me into the bedroom, and yet... Oh my god! Wait! This is not right! Master! This mirror is broken! This mirror is broken! I am loyal to you! But I am not! I don't have that kind of idea! This is impossible!" Chi Luo took 2 steps back and looked in horror at himself in the mirror with a seductive look on his face and his anxious master who was having an intense fight. Chi Luo wanted to die. What on earth was going on? Lu Sen, who was hiding in the distance, was confused. "What did you see?" "I let the mirror do its thing, and it seems to be doing a good job." Chapter 87. Voldemort already wanted to kill Quirrell, but now that his resurrection is in sight, he can only stabilize his unreliable subordinates first. Then Voldemort said, "Maybe it's the mirror. Don't be nervous, bring the child here." "Use the child." Chi Luo felt as if he had been pardoned. Without saying a word, he snapped his fingers. The ropes around Harry loosened instantly. "Stand here. Tell me. What did you see?" Quirrell roared at Harry with a ferocious face. Harry was anxious, hoping that Lu Sen would suddenly appear and kill Quirrell and Voldemort with one sword. But he looked around and saw no trace of Lu Sen. At Quirrell's urging, Harry came to the mirror of East. "Where is the Philosopher's Stone? Tell me, Potter," Quirrell asked. Being pushed in front of the familiar mirror, Harry was extremely nervous. He said to himself in his heart, "Make up a lie. Then create an opportunity for Lu Sen." "Yes. That's it. But something unexpected happened. Harry in the mirror showed a meaningful smile, took out the Philosopher's Stone from his pocket, blinked and put it back in his pocket. Then Harry's pocket suddenly felt heavy. He felt something heavy fall into it. Tell me what you saw. Quirrell urged again. I was shaking hands with Dumbledore. He made up. I won the Quidditch championship. And became a prefect. Quirrell immediately began to curse and shoved Harry away. At this moment, Voldemort on the back of his head said, he is lying. Let me talk to him. Face to face. Chi Luo suddenly panicked and said, No, no. Master. You are still very weak. I still have some strength left. Hurry up. Quirrell didn't dare to refute a word and immediately began to lift up the ridiculous turban on his head. Harry was horrified to see that as the turban slipped off, there was a flat, pale face on the back of Quirrell's head. There was no nose on that ferocious face, only two long and thin nostrils. The eyes were red and flashing with dangerous light. The moment he saw this face, the scar on Harry's forehead began to hurt. It felt like it was burning. Voldemort said slowly, the boy who lived. Look. What a great title. But it was obtained from me. Look at me, after that night, I was only a shadow and vapor. But if I get the Philosopher's Stone, I will regain my body. Back to this world. So, why don't you give me the Philosopher's Stone in your pocket? Harry was startled and subconsciously covered his pocket. He knew. What Lu Sen said was true. The other party could read people's minds. Lu Sen. Ha! Do you expect that brat to save you? Don't be silly. I admit that Lu Sen is indeed somewhat capable, but that's all. After I'm resurrected, I can kill him without any effort. You should think about yourself. Come to me. The reason you're still alive is because your parents knelt down and begged me. Don't let their deaths be in vain. Harry was immediately furious. You are talking nonsense. That's not the case at all. But in his heart he was thinking, Lu Sen. What are you waiting for? Kill this damn guy. Voldemort's expression changed, and after 2 seconds of silence, a sneer appeared on his face. I didn't expect there's a little mouse here. On the left side of the door. Kill him. Lu Sen cried out inwardly, not good. Before he could react, Chi Luo, who was waiting for an opportunity to perform meritorious service, turned around abruptly and raised his hand to emit a green light. Avada eats the big melon. With a snap, Lu Sen fell down. The invisibility charm on his body turned into ashes, revealing his pale face. No. Lu Sen. Harry shouted heartbreakingly. But the figure on the ground showed no reaction and remained motionless. End of this book, crossed out. Quirrell and Voldemort immediately burst into perverted smiles. See? Potter. Anyone who dares to be my enemy will end up like this. Voldemort said grimly. Now, hand over the Philosopher's Stone. After saying that, Quirrell turned to Harry, went up and grabbed his neck. Harry suddenly couldn't breathe. He struggled hard and subconsciously grabbed Quirrell's hand. Unfortunately, nothing happened. Quirrell's arm was burned by Lu Sen's lightning sword in the Forbidden Forest, and it was wrapped in thick gauze. The protective magic left by Harry's mother did not work. Lu Sen, lying dead on the ground, died with his eyes open, crossed out, observing secretly. Harry used the touch hand kill. Quirrell screamed and counted down to 3, 2, 1. Hey? What's going on? 0.5. 0.4. 0.39. Harry rolled his eyes. Why hasn't Quirrell responded yet? 0.05. 0.04. That's not right. Why is Harry kicking his legs? No. Stop moving. Shit. He sat up in shock while pretending to be dead and pulled out an AK-47. Chu-chu-chu. 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 Before Quirrell could react, the already dead Lu Sen fired a volley of piercing curses at him. After emptying the magazine, Lu Sen didn't delay for a second. He threw down the modified AK and picked up the Thunder Wand. After running up to him in 2 steps, Lu Sen's eyes flashed with ferocity, and he was determined to destroy the body. But when he passed by Harry, he saw that he was lifeless. His pupils began to dilate. Quirrell lying on the ground was riddled with bullet holes and blood all over the ground. It looked like he was going to die. Lu Sen wanted to cut him into pieces, but time was running out, so he could only sigh and decide to save Harry first. Voldemort is an indestructible cockroach. He cannot be killed unless his 7 Horcruxes are destroyed. Good buddy Harry only has one chance to live. Fluorescent. Shining. Healing light. Master Dr. Lu already had the experience of saving a unicorn once, so this time he didn't waste any time and directly used the highest power of the healing light. And it also had the thunder attribute attached to it. While the healing light quickly restored Harry's almost severed neck, the wand suddenly fell down, and the lightning on it struck Harry's heart with a crack. Harry's pupils shrank instantly. His stopped heart also started beating again under the stimulation of thunder. Harry, who had just woken up, had blurry vision and saw a figure emitting soft white light waving his hands in front of him. Gradually, the blurred and doubled images and the hollow sounds began to return to normal. Wasn't that glowing figure Lu Sen who had just been killed? Am I dead too? Lu Sen? Are we turning into ghosts? Harry asked with a wry smile. Lu Sen couldn't help laughing out loud, yet. We have become ghosts. From now on we can only wander around Hogwarts. There are not many young ghost girls here. I will give Myrtle to you. Harry gradually woke up under Lu Sen's continuous healing light, but the first thing he thought of was, wait. What about the Philosopher's Stone? But before Lu Sen could tease him, Quirrell behind Harry suddenly defied gravity and floated up. And landed behind Harry like a ghost. Lu Sen's eyes focused and he was ready to attack. But Quirrell's wand was already on Harry's head. Don't move. If you don't want him to die, just continue with your healing magic. Quirrell's face was pale, and dark red blood flowed from the corners of his mouth as he spoke. Lu Sen noticed that although it was Quirrell's mouth that was moving, the voice was Voldemort's. He didn't dare to act rashly. He slowly raised the thunder wand and the healing light continued to operate. Leave me Lu Sen alone. Kill him. Leave me alone. Harry shouted resolutely. But Lu Sen did not move, because Quirrell held the wand against Harry's head. With the opponent's strength, it only took a thought to shatter him into pieces. Lu Sen quietly controlled the healing light, keeping the brightness unchanged but reducing the efficacy by half, while diverting attention and saying, "You're not dead." Chilo's eyes were a little grey, and he showed a sinister smile like a zombie and said, "Kylo, my loyal servant is dead." His desire to live was not strong enough. Whether the body is alive or not depends on the will. For example, I have been wandering in the forests of Romania for 11 years. I want to live more than anyone else. I am more afraid of death than anyone else. As long as there is a possibility of survival, I will not let it go. But you live a hard life. You don't even have your own body. Lu Sen said sarcastically. But at this moment, Voldemort's face suddenly moved from the back of Quirrell's head to the front. Completely replacing him. Twisted, weird and creepy. He said with a grim look, "Isn't that right? As long as I get the Philosopher's Stone, I can rebuild my body." Lu Sen suppressed his fear and asked, "But can you use the magic stone?" Voldemort snorted and moved his body to allow Lu Sen's healing light to shine on more wounds. When your magic level is high enough, you can control any item. How about it? Become my subordinate. Your magic talent and killing instinct are so dazzling. Follow me. I can give you everything you want. Power. Wealth. Strength. All at your fingertips. Seeing that the other party's wand had slightly left Harry, Lu Sen raised the corner of his mouth and smiled defiantly, "Really? But my journey is to the stars and the sea." After he finished speaking, Lu Sen turned his wrist, the healing light instantly changed its form, and the thunder flame light sword slashed down. Chapter 88. The moment before the thunder flame light sword was about to touch Voldemort, a dangerous signal exploded in Lu Sen's heart. His eyes focused, and he instantly retracted his chopping motion and switched to defense. The next moment, a beam of red magic hit the thunder flame lightning sword. The magical light column that was as winding as a steel whip pushed Lu Sen to slide backwards, and it was not until he was more than 5 meters away that Lu Sen stood firm. Avada eats the big melon. The deadly green light followed closely, and Lu Sen had no way to avoid it. He subconsciously raised his hand and pointed the tip of the sword at the killing curse. The evil green light was instantly weakened by the power of the thunder flame light sword, but it still carried a terrible murderous aura. In a flash, a golden light flashed from the magic wand. The remaining killing curse was destroyed without a trace. Everything happened in an instant. Voldemort only saw a flash of sword, and the invincible killing curse was gone. He was stunned. That idiot Ji Luo is fine, but I performed it myself this time. How is it possible? This kid is weird. Only Lu Sen himself felt it. The moment the killing curse touched the wand, the seal set by Professor Flitwick and Professor McGonagall was automatically activated. It absorbed the killing magic completely. Then he sent a message of "Laugh, praise me now," to Lu Sen. Lu Sen, What's going on? Is my wand alive or is the seal alive? Without time to think, the sense of crisis came again. Lu Sen raised his hand and slapped his body, and all the 20 or so defensive talismans and magic around him were activated. The next second, more than a dozen magic attacks came crashing down. Lu Sen's eyes focused, and he quickly swung the lightning sword in his hand like the wind, and deflected. 4, 5, and the rest were all blocked by the defensive talisman. But the bad thing was that there was a weapon that could eliminate your weapon at the end. Lu Sen's thunder wand instantly flew out of his hand. Not bad. It's a pity that in my current state I don't even have 1/10 of the strength I had back then. Otherwise you would have been dead. But, how did you survive the killing curse? At this time, Lu Sen quietly reached out and prepared to take out a spare magic wand to perform the self-destruction method. As a result, his intention was instantly seen through by Voldemort, who had suffered a loss once. The next second, the entire wand sheath was blown into powder. Lu Sen was shocked and quickly raised his hands to pretend to surrender, preparing to say something nonsense to deceive the enemy. But the other party lost his patience. It doesn't matter. I'll deal with you later. Come here, Potter. Harry's clothes were suddenly summoned by magic, pulling him in front of Voldemort. He quickly covered his pocket with all his might, but Voldemort, losing his patience, had a murderous look in his eyes and was about to kill him. Lu Sen hurriedly shouted, "Harry! Surrender! We have no chance of winning." Harry was stunned for a moment. He looked at Lu Sen in astonishment, who had just been fighting with the opponent. Before he could react, Voldemort had already snatched the Philosopher's Stone. He looked at the unremarkable red gem in his hand with fascination and laughed with satisfaction. "Very good. Your surrender has earned you a chance to live. Potter. You should learn from your classmates." After saying that, he felt the Philosopher's Stone with his heart, and after a moment he muttered something, and soon the Philosopher's Stone in his hand glowed brightly red. It slowly floated up, from solid to virtual, and the magic power hidden inside was activated. Harry roared and clenched his fists to hit Voldemort. He would never allow the person who killed his parents to come back again. But Lu Sen shouted at the right time, "Harry! Look in the mirror. Isn't it your wish to have your parents by your side?" Seeing Harry looking at him angrily, Lu Sen quickly gave him a frantic look and continued, "Lord Voldemort can use the Philosopher's Stone to resurrect anyone. If you don't believe me, look in the mirror. Take a look." Harry regained his composure from his anger. He was too familiar with Lu Sen's eyes and tone. He was definitely going to cause trouble. He quickly turned his head, and from his angle he could just see the scene in the mirror. At the same time, at Lu Sen's signal, the working mirror changed its image. Harry in the mirror stretched out his hand and pressed it against Voldemort's face. Then, the other party shattered. Harry looked puzzled. How could this be possible? And weren't mirrors supposed to grant wishes? What was this? A fantasy? Lu Sen's thunder wand is out of charges and all the spare wands are destroyed. Just as he was thinking about what kind of symbol to draw, suddenly, he thought of a possibility. A possibility that was worth a gamble. Suddenly, his eyes were as sharp as torches, and his hands hidden behind his back quickly made hand gestures. The thunder wand on the ground in the distance reacted instantly. At the same time, the magic stone in the void emitted a dreamy light. With it as the center, an ethereal red magic power poured out, forming a magic energy field in the air that was as gorgeous and magnificent as a cosmic nebula. A huge amount of red magic power slowly rotated, almost covering half of the underground space. "As long as I absorb this magical power, I can become immortal," Voldemort said to himself ecstatically. He had been looking forward to this day for too long. After saying that, he couldn't wait to take a deep breath. The red magic power was inhaled into his mouth, which immediately made his whole body tremble. The borrowed body slowly turned into his own body. While Voldemort was concentrating on his resurrection, Lu Sen made a move and the thunder wand in the distance instantly flew into his hand. In Voldemort's stunned eyes, Lu Sen shouted, "The one who kills you is Lu Sen." At the same time, a dazzling lightning sword shot out. 40M broadsword mode. Slash. An expression of astonishment and unwillingness appeared on Voldemort's face, and then with two pops, the two halves of his body fell to the ground. The flames went out, and Harry was already sweating coldly. He was only one step away from that sword. Before Harry could cheer, Lu Sen said solemnly, "Harry. Go ahead. Touch him." Harry looked puzzled, but when he lowered his head, the scene in front of him made him gasp. The body that was cut in half by a burnt dividing line from the top of the head to the middle of the legs was actually growing granulation tissue at a rapid speed. And under the influence of the red magic in mid-air, it quickly gathered and merged. Harry was shocked. He squatted on the ground and put his hand on Voldemort's face without any doubt. The eyes of the noseless monster that had not yet been fully merged suddenly opened. Then a howl that was not like a human voice came out from its body. The places touched by Harry's hands quickly dried up and cracked, as if they had been eroded by thousands of years of time in an instant, and turned into particles of dust and dissipated in the air. But at this moment, Voldemort's body began to struggle violently. His two halves of the body leaned together randomly, and then he took a deep breath with his whole throat. The energy of the magic stone in mid-air was immediately attracted and absorbed into his body bit by bit. With this magical power, shocking scenes began to appear on Voldemort's body. The sand on his face was melting away, but new flesh and blood was growing rapidly inside at the same speed. The two forces refused to give in to each other. A tug of war was formed. But Lu Sen would not give the other party a chance. You know, Voldemort has maxed out his survival skills. He activated the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword again, and cut the opponent's body into 18 pieces in a flash. But a scene that made him exclaim "fuck" appeared. Under the influence of the Philosopher's Stone, Voldemort's vitality had become unreasonably strong. Countless insect-like granulations gushed out of the 18 charred wounds and quickly merged back together. Chapter 89. Voldemort's face was covered with white bones, and he looked at Lu Sen with a resentful look. That look of "you are dead" immediately made Lu Sen very angry. "I don't believe I can't kill you." Lu Sen looked up and saw that the magic power in the Philosopher's Stone was pouring into Voldemort's body at an accelerated rate. This should be the key reason why the opponent can't be killed no matter what. After figuring this out, Lu Sen hurriedly called out to Harry, "Quick! Touch him in a large area. As long as you touch him fast enough, he won't survive." Hearing this, Harry quickly started the mahjong washing mode. After being cut and chopped by Lu Sen, Voldemort's clothes were gone after he was put back together. So Harry used both hands to touch him from head to toe. From left to right. He touched him from left to right without any obstruction. He touched him all over again. Again and again. Over and over again. Voldemort, who originally endured the pain of destruction and rebirth on his face, now began to suffer the cycle of melting, turning into sand, and then reshaping and growing all over his body. Voldemort gnashed his teeth and endured the severe pain, his eyes were like knives, and he looked at the two people in front of him with hatred. He sneered, closed his eyes and tried hard to absorb the magic power in the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is indeed a treasure that can make people immortal. Under Voldemort's full absorption, the protective magic left by Harry's mother can't keep up with the speed. Lu Sen certainly would not sit still and wait for death. As soon as Harry started the mahjong washing mode, he stood in the center of the red cosmic nebula composed of magic power. Lu Sen took a few deep breaths like Voldemort but found it was of no use. If you don't absorb this magic, it's like being in another dimension. You can see it but you can't touch it. It seems that only those with profound attainments in magic can absorb it. Can you? So can I. Are you talented? I am good at it. Thinking of this, Lu Sen raised the thunder wand, used it as a small stick, and tentatively poked the magical energy in the air. Lu Sen used the thunder wand as a medium to inject his energy into it. After trying several times, the energy only showed slight fluctuations like mist. Lu Sen took a deep breath. Is it so difficult? Absorb, absorb. His eyes lit up. Absorbing magic energy is the strength of the sealing chain. Just now, even the big melon was absorbed. Chain, chain. Help me absorb the energy of the magic stone. As the call continued, the sealing chain that had been standing still flickered a few times and actually sent out a vague response. Then, the sealing chain in the magic wand stretched out of the magic wand like a snake and plunged into the red energy in the air. Lu Sen was stunned. Ah, this? Is he really intelligent? The runes on the chain flickered, as if they were making adjustments. After a few breaths, they actually absorbed a ball of red magic power like a straw. Haha! Good job! Come on, chain! Sealing chain! Lu Sen, ah! Not nice? Then call you Xiaozhuo. Xiao Feng? Oh! Don't be angry. How about Zijin? Sealing chain. Xiaojin reluctantly accepted the name and began to absorb it with all his strength. But the magic power of the magic stone was pure and huge, and the chain only absorbed a small amount of it before conveying the message full to Lu Sen. Lu Sen, don't stop. Look at that noseless monster over there, how can he keep absorbing? You have such a poor appetite. Xiaojin, if you can do it, go ahead. After expressing his dissatisfaction, Xiaojin angrily stretched out the other end of the chain from the magic wand and then wrapped it around Lu Sen's hand. Lu Sen suddenly felt a surge of mysterious magical power rushing into his body. Before he could feel happy for a few seconds, Lu Sen felt dizzy. The surging magic power in his body was running around in his blood, limbs, chest, and abdomen like a headless fly. The bloated feeling made him worry that he would explode and die. Why does it feel like the forced transmission of skills in martial arts novels? Hey? Lu Sen suddenly had an idea and thought of the Chinese breathing method. What is absorbed during breathing is not oxygen, but qi. Qi is also a mysterious thing. When beginners cannot feel qi, they should imagine it as an invisible energy in the universe. If you think about it this way, isn't it similar to the red magic power in the Philosopher's Stone in front of you? Lu Sen quickly sat cross-legged, holding the thunder wand in his hand and placing it on his dantian. Using Xiaojin as a bridge and supplemented by the Chinese breathing method, the magic power running rampant in the body was instantly controlled. They lined up and were taken into Lu Sen's dantian. After finding the method, the magic power in the air was quickly absorbed by the sealing chain and then passed to Lu Sen. Dantian soon felt full, but he was not panicked at all. He had not learned the Chinese People's Education Edition cultivation textbook in vain. There are so many acupoints in the human body. Zhongting, Shenton, Beihui. Start pouring in along the major acupoints. When the major acupoints are full, fill the surrounding 8 extraordinary meridians. The compatibility of the magic power in the Philosopher's Stone is unbelievable. It is even purer than the one transformed from the refined spirit. There is no sense of awkwardness or strangeness at all. And it also contains infinite vitality and mysterious energy. Lu Sen and Xiaojin cooperated more and more tacitly, and they drank a lot of the food happily. But Voldemort was in a miserable situation. He only felt pain and no happiness. From his perspective, he didn't see how Lu Sen absorbed the magic power. He couldn't imagine that someone could absorb the magic power of the magic stone so quickly. Unless, the magic stone was destroyed. Without the magical support of the Philosopher's Stone, the protective magic left by Harry's mother finally prevailed. Voldemort let out an angry and unwilling cry, and turned into a handful of dust a few seconds later. At the same time, Lu Sen opened his eyes refreshed. All the brilliant magic power floating in the air was sucked up by him and Xiaojin. The magic stone in the void turned back into a solid body and fell quietly to the ground. Its color was still as bright red as ever, and it seemed to have not been damaged at all. Seeing that Voldemort was destroyed and the Philosopher's Stone was safe and sound, Harry breathed a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. But at this moment, a cold wind suddenly blew into the originally quiet room. Lu Sen's eyes focused, he knew that it was Voldemort's remaining soul trying to escape. Sure enough, the next moment, Voldemort, who had just fallen to the ground, appeared in mid-air. Only a misty soul was left of him. He let out an unwilling and resentful roar, and suddenly pierced through Harry's body. The exhausted Harry was impacted by the residual soul of Voldemort and lost consciousness instantly. Voldemort did not dare to retaliate against Lu Sen, because the lesson of Peeves was there. Moreover, the defeat just now came inexplicably, so he had no choice but to decisively choose to escape. However, Lu Sen showed a sinister smile, "This is what I've been waiting for." While speaking, Lu Sen took out a talisman to suppress evil and stuck it on the thunder wand. Thunder struck Peachwood staff body and thunder staff core and evil suppressing talisman and lightning and flame lightsaber. Fully anti-evil buff. Feeling the pressure from the mighty power of heaven, Voldemort in mid-air suddenly felt something was wrong. But alas! It was too late. The sword with full anti-evil buffs actually made a buzzing sound like a huge bell. After a scream from the soul, Voldemort's remaining soul shattered instantly. But what made Lu Sen helpless was that after just a few seconds, the remnant soul reunited under the influence of some force. It's like turning on a restore cheat. Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Turn on. Lu Sen understood in his heart that it was the effect of the Horcrux. As long as the Horcrux was not destroyed, the residual soul of the noseless monster would be immortal. After figuring this out, Lu Sen stopped forcing it, and slashed at the remnant of Voldemort who was escaping again. He took out a talisman to suppress evil and threw it over. What? After a scream, Voldemort fled and disappeared without a trace. But a slightly trembling talisman paper ball was left on the ground. Chapter 90. After carefully picking up the paper ball of the evil-suppressing talisman and sticking 10 more layers of talismans on it, Lu Sen nodded with satisfaction and put it away. Lu Sen then checked Harry and was relieved to see that he was only mentally traumatized and would be fine after a good night's sleep. Quickly transform. Hey! To Lu Sen's surprise, the sealing chains still dutifully held their posts and did not waver, not allowing anything to be used except the illumination spell. Xiaojin, can you open the back? I'll use a transfiguration spell. Xiaojin, no, no. Dad and Mom won't let me. With an aggrieved expression. How about the illumination spell? Xiaojin, it was given by the grandma with white beard. Lu Sen, who? Old Deng? In a sense, you're right. Well, it looks like we need the professor's approval. Lu Sen stopped making things difficult for Xiaojin. He found Harry's wand and used a transfiguration spell to change his bedding into something new. After settling his roommate, Lu Sen finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ah, right. He unbuttoned his tattered robe and took out a toad wrapped in a talisman from the secret pocket on his chest. Reifu. Your death was so heroic. But being killed by Voldemort himself was also the pinnacle of your life. The dead toad was none other than roommate Neville's. Lu Sen had been thinking about how to resist the killing curse. Also known as the Avada Kedavra curse. He used a bunch of defensive magic and upright talismans to stack in 8 trigrams. If he was in danger of his life, this would be the last insurance. But before leaving, he saw the toad leaf and suddenly had a new idea. Since the killing curse is a spell that will kill anyone who falls under it, can it be broken by just letting it kill something? So Lu Sen pasted a talisman containing his own aura on the little guy and put it in his pocket. It actually worked. The killing curse first killed the toad with Lu Sen's aura, and then the aftermath was blocked by the Bagua talisman. Goodbye, Leaf. I will buy another pet for your master. Let it accompany and be loyal to you. Goodbye. But if you can't bear to leave your master, I can ask Snape to make you into a stuffed toad. He 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 he. The spirit of Lefu in heaven, quack, quack, quack. Yuan number and. After seeing off Lifu, Lu Sen rubbed his hands and picked up the magic stone on the ground. Lu Sen estimated that there was not much time left before the principal came back, so he quickly took the magic stone and put it into his backpack. The originally spacious backpack space now has no place to stand. Inside is densely packed with piles of iron blocks. However, Lu Sen did not stop, but entered the small villa inside the door in the corner through the gap. There were 4 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, a kitchen and 2 bathrooms, all made of iron. All the furniture and books were moved away, and the place was filled with iron blocks. Full. If the compressed space inside had not been reinforced layer by layer, these heavy iron lumps would have caused the space to collapse. In addition to the steel, the entire space inside the door only had a huge safe placed in the corner of the living room, which contained 100 different nutritional potions. There were also 2 boxes of mineral water and various beverages. Lu Sen started making arrangements a month in advance. Since he didn't know how to use the magic stone or how to configure the elixir of life, he came up with this design. Lu Sen, who had already absorbed a large amount of magic power from the Philosopher's Stone, activated the Philosopher's Stone with ease. He also imitated Voldemort and guided out the magic power inside. Soon, the red magic power spread out like mist, forming a red nebula-shaped magic energy field. Lu Sen first guided the magic power into the safe, so that the bottles and jars in it were completely wrapped in magic power. Then he controlled the magic power to transform them. For a long while, Lu Sen didn't know whether he succeeded or not. He just felt that all the bottles and jars were filled with a large amount of magic power unique to the magic stone. Under the baptism of this magical power, the safe and the surrounding iron blocks have been turned into gold. Lu Sen was immediately delighted, as it seemed that converting gold was actually easier than making the elixir of life. So Lu Sen started his crazy turning iron into gold mode. Under the influence of the energy of the magic stone, all the metals in the space inside the door soon turned into 24K pure gold. The purity is 6 times 9. It can be used as a standard experimental material in experiments. By the time Lu Sen finished his work inside and outside, the small villa inside the door and the backpack space were already shining with golden light. The magical thing is that the magic power in the Philosopher's Stone is inexhaustible. After being led out of the room by Voldemort and being beaten by Lu Sen, there is no sign of reduction. Cow batch. Lu Sen was climbing up the pure gold ladder to get out of his backpack and his teeth were showing when he laughed. Lu Sen excused himself in his heart, I can't help it, I am a descendant of the dragon. Dragons like gold. It makes sense. It also conforms to logic. The next second, a hand suddenly appeared on his shoulder. Ah! I'll stick it on. Lu Sen was so scared that he took out a talisman to suppress evil at lightning speed and stuck it on Dumbledore's head with a snap. Dumbledore tore off the talisman expressionlessly, and after feeling it for a while, he said calmly, very interesting oriental magic. An old friend of mine is very good at this. Lu Sen took a breath and said embarrassedly, I thought Voldemort was back again. You are so quiet that it's easy to scare people to death. The old friend you are talking about is not named Lu, right? Dumbledore smiled kindly, according to your Chinese seniority system, Lu Tao and I are from the same generation, so you should call me. Lu Sen took a deep breath in his heart, if you say so, it's two. Ha 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 ha. I'd better call you the principal. Oh, by the way, how long have you been here? Lu Sen quickly changed the subject. I've been here half an hour ago. Lu Sen was shocked and thought it would be better to talk about seniority. Oh. I don't know what happened to Harry. I treated him. It should be mental trauma, right? Yes, it's nothing serious. I've sent him to the school hospital. Ah? So soon. That's great. I'll go see him. Seeing Dumbledore looking at him without blinking and with an intimidating look, Lu Sen suddenly broke out in sweat. He quickly took out the seemingly inconspicuous red gem from his pocket, looked at it for a few seconds, and then slowly handed it to Dumbledore. I use it. Lu Sen was about to confess, but Dumbledore smiled kindly. He said with relief, I was worried about you, Lu Sen. I was worried that you would go astray. Be obsessed with the temptation of wealth and eternal life brought by the Philosopher's Stone. But you, are very good. You controlled your inner desires. Ah, actually I converted billions of gold, and also took the time to do some small experiments. Lu Sen said embarrassedly. But Dumbledore didn't care. In his opinion, the Philosopher's Stone was not something that anyone could use just because they wanted to. Lu Sen's words a little bit and a small experiment were interpreted by him as a little bit and a little trick. Dumbledore stared at Lu Sen for a while, wondering why this kid's magic power had increased a lot. Was it an illusion? Or was it because he had just been contaminated by the Philosopher's Stone? At this moment, Lu Sen suddenly remembered something. He smiled and took out the Thunder Wand and said, You have already calculated everything, right? The 10-time limit doesn't actually exist. Dumbledore came back to his senses, a light flashed across his glasses, and he said meaningfully, People usually don't cherish things that they can squander at will. Even if such things are rare and precious. When people get used to squandering, even the most precious things lose their meaning. They become ordinary, and even become a disaster. He patted Lu Sen's shoulder and continued, Minerva and Phileas sealed your wand not because of your fault, nor because they were afraid of the destructive power of this wand. They were worried that you would become addicted to destruction. And walk the path of a dark wizard. Minerva and Phileas are affectionate names for Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick, and only friends can call them that. Their full names are Minerva McGonagall and Phileas Flitwick. Lu Sen nodded thoughtfully, and he began to understand the logic. It's like controlling knives. We are not afraid of knives themselves, there are many things more dangerous than knives. What we are worried about is that if people hold controlled knives every day, their desire to do evil will grow infinitely. A minor conflict that could be resolved with just a few curses can easily result in death if both parties are armed with sharp knives and blades. Even a person who is usually gentle can make a big mistake under impulse. That's the truth. I'm glad you withstood the test. Especially when your wand only had one last chance left, you didn't choose to kill, but used the precious opportunity to save Harry. This is very, very valuable. He. Actually, I didn't think about it that much. Hey? Wait. Do you know what happened at that time? You wouldn't be there the whole time, right? Lu Sen was laughing and discovered the key point, which is terrifying when he thought about it more carefully. Dumbledore shook his head and sighed, too many things happened tonight. I didn't expect Quirrell to secretly contact some Death Eaters and cause a lot of chaos on the Muggle streets. In short, it took me a long time to get back. As for knowing your performance tonight, haha. When I was decorating this place, I left some small magic. So I can roughly know what you did. Lu Sen narrowed his eyes and looked at the other person, a little bit unconvinced by such explanation. But he soon remembered something else. Headmaster, are you planning to destroy the Philosopher's Stone next? Dumbledore was a little surprised, but when he thought about Lu Sen's superb prophetic ability, it made sense. He sighed and said calmly, I will talk to Nicholas Flamel in a few days. Perhaps destroying the Philosopher's Stone is the best option. We have to do this. But Professor, if every advanced technology is destroyed for fear of being used by bad guys, when will the world be able to enter a new chapter? Ignoring Dumbledore's slightly confused expression, Lu Sen continued. Voldemort is nothing to be afraid of. If we get rid of Voldemort, we still have Voldemort and Voldemort. Seeing the other party's eyes widened, Lu Sen hurriedly said, I am making an analogy. There will always be endless dark wizards who covet the Philosopher's Stone. You shouldn't say that you destroy it because you are afraid of being coveted. What's the difference between this and killing a beautiful woman because you are afraid of being coveted by a pervert? Have you prevented the appearance of perverts? You can't. Instead, you waste a beautiful woman. Isn't that the truth? Dumbledore was a little confused. It seemed to make some sense, but something seemed wrong. Lu Sen struck while the iron was hot and said, just take out a high-quality imitation and smash it in public. Then, after a while, tell the public that Nicholas Flamel died heroically. Then erect a monument for him, and you go on stage and shed a few tears. Wouldn't the matter be resolved? I don't believe anyone can find someone protected by the Fidelius curse. Especially with a top wizard like you as the guarantor. Dumbledore was thoughtful, and the scales in his heart began to tilt. Lu Sen suggested again, if it really doesn't work, I have someone in China. Let them take a few years off. We'll have to wait until Voldemort dies. Seeing that Dumbledore was already a little shaken, Lu Sen smiled and whispered, let me tell you the inside story. Voldemort won't live more than 7 years. Then he will be completely wiped out. Dumbledore immediately smiled kindly. This prophecy is so comforting. Why didn't you say it earlier? Chapter 91. Harry didn't wake up until 3 days later in the school infirmary. Dumbledore was already waiting by his bed. Harry was relieved to learn that Voldemort had been destroyed. After Dumbledore answered all his questions and left, Lu Sen and others came to visit him with gifts. Lu Sen had to talk to the head nurse, Madame Pomfrey, for a long time before he was allowed to enter the ward. Lu Sen had already told Hermione and Ron what happened at the end of the night, so they gave Harry a big hug as soon as they saw him. But 2 seconds later, they realized that Harry was still a patient, and quickly stood up to check if he was hurt. Lu Sen laughed and said, you slept for 3 days. If Dumbledore hadn't just visited you, we would have no excuse to get in. Harry talked about what Dumbledore had just said to him, and learned that the invisibility cloak was returned to Harry by Dumbledore. Ron and Hermione were immediately shocked. When Ron heard the news that the Philosopher's Stone had been destroyed and Nicholas Flamel would die soon, he immediately sighed and said it was a pity. Lu Sen, hi? Oh, yes, it's ruined. It's in pieces. Harry, but what did Dumbledore say? To the perfectly sane, death is but another great adventure. Ron told Harry what happened after he and Hermione left. When they returned, everything went well, except for the Muggle War level. The game was reset. If you want to pass it, you have to play it again. Ron won the game in a normal way with his rich gaming experience. Before they could finish their chat, they were kicked out by Madame Pomfrey. The next day, at the final ceremony, Harry finally recovered his strength and arrived at the auditorium on time. At this time, the decoration in the hall is green and silver, representing Slytherin, to celebrate their winning of the House Cup for 7 consecutive years. Originally Gryffindor had a hope of winning, but Lu Sen and his 4 companions were caught while sending Norbert away late at night, and Gryffindor was deducted 200 points. Harry missed Gryffindor's last Quidditch match because he was in a coma for 3 days. As a result, they were defeated by the Ravenclaw team and lost all the points. Now that Slytherin is far ahead in points, they have begun to celebrate their victory in the House Cup in advance. Malfoy's face was filled with a nasty smirk, and he shouted, "Hey, Potter! I really should thank you. If it weren't for your help, we wouldn't have won the House Cup so easily." His words immediately caused the Slytherin students to burst into laughter. This kind of laughter was very harsh to Hermione, Ron, and the others. Hermione immediately lay down on the table and started crying out of self-blame. Harry and Ron, who were already grief-stricken, became even more furious when they heard Hermione crying, and turned around to start scolding. But Lucien shouted first, "Draco! Who said you won the College Cup?" The scene suddenly became quiet, and Lucien's words made many Slytherin students couldn't help but sneer. But Malfoy waved his hand to quiet down the people around him. As one of the 28 sacred families, the Malfoy family still has some appeal in the pure blood circle. The little wizards around him immediately stopped laughing. Draco looked at Lucien with complicated eyes. Ever since he witnessed Lucien's strength in the Forbidden Forest and had the experience of fighting side by side with him, his opinion of Lucien has changed a lot. However, as the College Cup was a done deal, he couldn't think of anything to worry about after thinking about it over and over again. So he plucked up the courage to say, "Am I wrong? We are several dozen points higher than the second and third place. We are even 200 points higher than you, Gryffindor. The championship belongs to Slytherin." Harry and many other young Gryffindor wizards thought that Lucien was so angry that he lost his mind, and they all used their eyes to persuade him not to be impulsive. However, Lucien said confidently, "I bet 100 gold galleons. Gryffindor wins this year's House Cup. I say it." Malfoy looked puzzled immediately. He turned to look at the scoring ball showing the score, then looked at his Slytherin friends who were equally confused. "Are you still asleep? Gryffindor is doomed to lose. We're 200 points behind." He thought, "Is Lucien bluffing? He knows he's going to lose, but he wants to scare me with his momentum?" Thinking of this, he revealed a look of seeing through everything and said, "Since you offered me 100 gold galleons, why should I refuse? Everyone, bear witness for me. Don't think of denying your debt when the time comes." Ron quickly pulled Lucien's sleeve and whispered, "Stop it. Forget it. You're talking about 100 gold galleons. Not 100 copper nuts." Lucien gave his friends a reassuring look, and then continued, "Draco. So is it a deal?" Malfoy said proudly, "It's a deal. 100 gold galleons. I bet on Slytherin to win." After that, he sat down and happily high-fived Crabbe and Goyle to celebrate his windfall in advance. Hermione's eyes were red as she said, "How can you be so impulsive? Isn't this obviously giving him money?" Harry's eyes suddenly lit up, and he asked excitedly, "Did you predict something?" Ron's eyes widened immediately, and he suddenly said, "Yes. You must have seen something. Otherwise, even if you are not short of money, you would not make such a mistake." "Haha." Lucien hissed and showed a look of confidence in victory. After a while, Dumbledore began to speak. "Another year has passed. I believe your little brains must be much more fulfilled than last year. Before you enjoy your delicious food, please listen to a few more words from me, an old man. First of all, if I remember correctly, we will first have the award ceremony for the College Cup. The specific scores of each house are as follows: 4th place, Gryffindor, 262 points, 3rd place, Hufflepuff, 352 points, Ravenclaw 426 points, Slytherin 472 points. As soon as the words fell, a deafening cheer broke out at the Slytherin table. Malfoy could be heard slapping the table and shouting arrogantly, "Lucien, did you hear that? I won." Harry, Ron, and the others were so angry that they gnashed their teeth, and felt that Malfoy was particularly annoying at this moment. Dumbledore continued, "However, several recent events must also be taken into account." The hall became very quiet, the Slytherin's smiles faded a little, and Malfoy suddenly had a bad feeling. Dumbledore cleared his throat and said, "Some things have happened recently that I think need to be counted in the house score. First of all, Ron Weasley. He played the most exciting game of Muggle War in Hogwarts. I'm going to give him 50 points." The Gryffindor table suddenly erupted in cheers. Percy excitedly showed off to the classmates on both sides. Ron. My brother. He passed the giant Muggle war chest set by Professor McGonagall. Ron was stunned, and when he heard the 50 points added, his face turned red like a boiled crab. Second prize Miss Hermione Granger, for not panicking in the face of fire and solving a complex logical reasoning puzzle. I award 50 points to Gryffindor House. Hermione immediately buried her face in her arms and cried excitedly. Third item Harry Potter. He has shown great courage and bravery. For this, I will award Gryffindor House 50 points. The Gryffindors were ecstatic they had risen by a full 150 points. The fourth one Lou Sr. He defeated the powerful enemy with his calmness and solid magical knowledge that far surpassed his peers. What's even more commendable is that between winning and saving his friend, he chose to lend a helping hand without hesitation. I will award Gryffindor House 60 points. The noise suddenly broke out, and the shouts of the little wizards almost blew the ceiling off. The little wizard who was silently calculating the scores in his mind was surprised to find that Gryffindor had tied with Slytherin with the extra points of the 4 people. Dumbledore raised a hand, and the hall gradually fell silent again. There are many kinds of courage. Facing enemies requires courage and fearlessness, and the same is true for facing friends. I'd like to give Neville Longbottom 10 points. As soon as the words fell, the whole hall went crazy. Gryffindor made a comeback and won the House Cup. Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw were also happy from the bottom of their hearts for defeating Slytherin. Harry and his 2 friends stood up and cheered happily, but Neville was so shocked by the sudden extra points that he stood there in a daze. Many classmates rushed over to give him hugs, but he didn't react. Lucien looked back and saw that the Slytherin table was gloomy, especially Malfoy, who looked as if he had been cast under a petrification spell, and was even trembling a little when he looked closely. Ron noticed Lucien's gaze and looked over. Seeing the dazed Malfoy, he immediately shouted happily, Malfoy! We won! Don't forget what you just said. Malfoy shuddered immediately, and all his strength seemed to be drained away. If it weren't for Crabbe and Goyle beside him, he would have fallen under the table. Dumbledore clapped his hands, and the decorations in the hall instantly changed from green to bright red, and the snake head on the flag was changed into a majestic lion. Chapter 92. The next day, the final results were announced. Hermione ranked first in the grade, and Lucien ranked second. The difference between the two was only 2 points, which scared Lucien so much that he exclaimed that it was a close call. If she accidentally surpasses Miss Know-It-All, she will regard herself as the goal to surpass for the whole year. And she will be crazy about everyone around her. She was already crazy enough before. Harry and Ron were also surprised to find that they all passed the final exams with high scores. Even Neville managed to pass. Although his potion score was not good, he got a high score in herbology, which brought the average score back up. Before leaving the school, Lucien found Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick. Before he could say anything, the 2 professors smiled and said that they knew why he was there. They also said that they had already noticed the back door left by the headmaster, but they just turned a blind eye. Professor McGonagall smiled and said, Albus has already told us about your wand. He also told us about your performance that night and the rescue of the unicorn in the Forbidden Forest. Hold power in your hands and be kind in your heart. We are pleased with your performance. We were really afraid that you would become addicted to power and go astray. Child, you have proved yourself with kindness and integrity. I think it is time to unseal your wand. Lucien felt a little embarrassed by the compliment, but he quickly said, Wait. Professor, I think the seal is pretty good. Amid the shocked expressions of the 2 professors, Lucien called out, Xiaojin. Come out. The sealing chain slowly poked its head out from the magic wand. When it saw the 2 professors, it immediately cheered and stretched out a large part of it like a long snake, looking left and right affectionately. Under the professors' astonished gazes, Lucien explained how the sealing chain helped him absorb the enemy's evil curses and see clearly the magic's operating roots. The 2 professors studied it in shock for a while, then said in amazement, We don't quite understand what happened to the seal chain that can generate spiritual intelligence, but it can help you see the operation of magic. This should be a magical coincidence. Your wand is very powerful, and it constantly fights against the seal during the casting process, so this effect occurs. So, are you sure you don't want to remove the seal? Lucien blinked and discussed, Xiaojin is pretty good. I hope it can stay. Hey, can you make Xiaojin listen to me? Like, add a switch. Half an hour later, Lu Sen happily said goodbye to the two professors and happily received the upgraded version of the Thunder Wand. Under the ideological transformation of the two professors, the sealed chain Xiaojin obediently recognized Lu Sen as his master and was completely under his free control. Under normal circumstances, magic can be cast freely, and the Thunder Wand with its own lightning special effect has officially returned as the king. With just a thought, Xiaojin can switch to learning mode and instantly activate the seal runes on his body. At that time, all magic cannot be released, helping Lu Sen to understand the whole process of releasing magic. When you are free, you can chat with Xiaojin, and when you encounter danger, it can come out to protect you. It's perfect. When it was time to leave school, Lu Sen boarded the train with everyone else. He did not choose to go back home to Hogsmeade. He wanted to visit the Galactic Group in Diagon Alley. On the train, everyone was happily eating and drinking, imagining about their holiday life. The only one who had no expectations for the holidays was Harry. He felt that only Hogwarts gave him the feeling of home, and number 4, Privet Drive, was not warm at all. Lu Sen was thoughtful when he heard this. Harry's uncle, aunt, and cousin Dolly are really 3 weirdos. You say you love Harry? You made him live in a closet for 10 years. You used him like a child laborer every day. But if you say you don't love him, right? For all these years, she never thought of sending him to an orphanage or anywhere else. She was afraid that Harry would go astray and she was determined not to let him get in touch with the wizarding world. They felt that Harry was an eyesore every day, but when Harry really went out to learn magic, they all tried to stop him. It was very contradictory. Ron sincerely invited, "Come to my house for a few days during the summer vacation. All of you can come. I'll write a letter to invite you all." Lu Sen of course readily agreed. He had never seen what a pure wizard family looked like. And he was very familiar with the Weasley family. Ron, the twin brothers, and Percy, there is no need to say much about the 4 people in school. Mrs. Weasley is from the Galactic Group, and Mr. Arthur Weasley is also an old acquaintance of the Galactic Group and often goes to the group to approve magical transformation items. And Ginny, the youngest daughter of the Weasley family, is Lu Sen's good online friend. She also often talked about interesting things in the garden such as gnomes and flower fairies. Lu Sen had long wanted to go and see them. Harry also agreed, "Great. This gives me more to look forward to. I will miss you." As they talked, Harry became sad. He really didn't want to go back to his uncle and aunt's house. Lu Sen changed the subject and said, "I see Hagrid gave you a photo album. Can I see it?" "Oh, of course. He wrote letters to my parents' classmates and collected them." As he spoke, Harry took out a photo album from his luggage and handed it to Lu Sen carefully. Lu Sen flipped through the pages one by one. They were all photos of Harry's parents, and each one was filled with happy smiles. These magical photos are all animated and more vivid than the electronic photo albums of later generations. "Harry, this album is a little yellowed, let me help you refurbish it." Lu Sen sighed in his heart. He could imagine the complicated feelings Harry had when he looked through the album. Renovating the album was the only way he could help. He could also take the opportunity to make a copy, which a certain old bat would collect as a treasure. Harry was a little reluctant to let go of the photo album. He loved every photo in it. If it weren't for this album, he wouldn't even know what his parents looked like. The one in the mirror of Erised doesn't count, it's just his imagination. Lu Sen comforted him, "Don't worry, Harry. The company has a full set of printing equipment. I will refurbish, enlarge, and reframe the photos and mail them to you as soon as possible. Of course, the original copies will also be returned to you intact." Only then did Harry feel relieved and thanked Lu Sen. After the train arrived at the station, the little wizards lined up and crossed the platform 9 3/4 in batches. There are workers watching over the wizard station, and only 3 little wizards are allowed to pass through at a time to prevent the muggles on the opposite side from noticing anything wrong. Although a spell was cast at the station to confuse muggles so that they would not pay too much attention to this place, such a rule was still set up for safety reasons. When it was Lu Sen and his group's turn, Harry, Ron and Hermione went through first, and Lu Sen was helplessly separated from the next group. After waiting for several minutes, he was finally allowed to pass through the wall. Lu Sen's outfit was the least conspicuous among the little wizards. He only carried a backpack, and there was nothing out of place in his attire or his image and temperament. On the other hand, although the little wizards were also wearing casual clothes common in Muggle society, the quaint suitcases on the luggage cart and the owls in the huge cages always attracted the attention of passers-by. Lu Sen noticed that those Muggle passers-by who noticed the owl or found the little wizard's clothes strange, were frowning and thinking in the last second, and then blinked and turned their heads in the next second. Then they picked up the ticket again, or looked up at the road sign. Their attention was disturbed. How pitiful! The station is already complicated, and from time to time I see things I shouldn't see, which interferes with my thinking. Lu Sen shook his head and thought to himself. After walking a short distance forward, they saw Harry and his group. They were chatting with a lady. It was Mrs. Weasley. Before Lu Sen could get close, a surprised figure tiptoed and spotted him. Mom! There he is! Hey! Lu Sen! Here! It was Ginny. She was wearing a beautiful baseball uniform, with long hair draped over her shoulders, looking very energetic. Ginny! Hello, Mrs. Weasley! So nice to see you! Mrs. Weasley was hugging Harry. Upon hearing this, she turned around and gave Lu Sen a big hug. Lu Sen took this opportunity to wink at Ginny, who responded with a playful tongue-out emoticon. I heard from Ron that he invited you to visit our house during the holidays. Oh Lu Sen! I'm so happy! I will cook a delicious meal for you then. You can also play Quidditch with Ron and the others. My bedroom is a bit crowded, but believe me, the garden is definitely spacious enough. Mrs. Weasley said enthusiastically. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll bring Chinese seasonings with me when the time comes. I'll also make you some Chinese dishes to try. As he was speaking, a middle-aged fat man, estimated to weigh 250 pounds, came over from a distance, with a belly so big that it looked like a lifebuoy was stuffed in it. Uncle Vernon! Harry greeted. However, the other party just glanced at Harry and the others with his peripheral vision, made an imperceptible hum, and then said impatiently, Hurry up, kid. Roadside parking is limited in time. Mrs. Weasley frowned, but smiled, and said, You must be Harry's relative, I suppose. Vernon said calmly, I guess so. Then he ignored everyone and turned away alone. Mrs. Weasley shook her head. She couldn't believe that there were such parents in the world, and she couldn't help but feel even more distressed for Harry. Harry was used to this. He forced a strong smile and glanced at everyone reluctantly. I have to go. See you then. Lu Sen looked at his poor roommate and felt that his back looked so weak, helpless, and pitiful. I thought to myself, how about I do it? Chapter 93. Walking out of the train station, Lu Sen met Mr. Arthur Weasley, who came to pick him up. He warmly invited Lu Sen and said he would give him a ride no matter what. Lu Sen actually wanted to have a good time in the Muggle world, and deliberately did not let his family come to pick him up. After all, we are used to modern life, and suddenly going to a magic school for a year really feels like a lifetime ago. However, he couldn't refuse the Weasley family's kindness, so he didn't refuse and was pushed into the car by Ginny. Lu Sen watched the Weasley twins, Percy and Ron, carry their luggage in one by one. Then, when the Muggles were not paying attention, they got into the carriage one by one. But Lu Sen was not surprised at all. After all, there was the traceless extension spell. Not to mention expanding it several times. If you are willing to use precious materials, it would be no problem to expand it into 4 bedrooms and living rooms. However, Lu Sen was full of curiosity about this car. After all, it was a car that could fly and become invisible. The interior is very spacious and so many people can sit inside without feeling crowded at all. But Mr. Weasley's driving skills are really not good. He almost hits vehicles or pedestrians at least 5 times on every street. If his car didn't have some self-awareness, the way he drove would definitely be a road killer. However, the Weasleys seemed to have gotten used to it. Even though vehicles were making sharp turns and overtaking on the street, they continued to chat with Lu Sen without panic. Lu Sen was sandwiched between Ron and Ginny. He really wanted to grab a handrail or something to increase his sense of security, but he could only drift like a lone boat in the bumpy ride. People who are used to driving will easily feel motion sickness when sitting in the seat of another person, let alone when the other person is driving in an unconventional way. Lu Sen felt a little dizzy and his stomach was churning. Ginny, who was leaning against the car door, smiled wickedly and said, "Are you carsick?" Fred quipped, "Really? Lu Sen? You're dizzy at this speed? Compared to a flying broom, this is like a snail." George understood and said, "Oh, you didn't forget, did you? Lu Sen is not good at flying brooms." Fred, "Really? Is there anyone who can't fly a broomstick well? Ah ha 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 ha. Ah ha ha ha. The two of them clapped their hands happily, and even Ron and Percy joined in the conversation. They also pushed Lu Sen from time to time to increase his motion sickness experience. Lu Sen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. These bad friends, how could this be the same as a flying broom? It is a bit similar. Stop shaking. I give up. I give up. Ginny held onto Lu Sen's arm to help steady him and prevent him from drifting with the current. Okay. Okay. Don't bully him. Ginny said with a cute and fierce look and waved her little pink fists. Several brothers sighed one after another, with mocking looks in their eyes. Ginny blushed immediately and turned to look out the window, ignoring her brothers. When she saw Lu Sen looking at her and smiling in the reflection of the glass, she reached out and pinched him without saying a word. After passing the congested area, Mr. Weasley no longer made sharp turns frequently. Lu Sen finally recovered, but he and Ginny tacitly did not let go of each other. They just leaned on each other with their arms held together. Fortunately, Ron and the others couldn't see it from their angle and didn't notice the two people's little movements. Mr. Weasley, I noticed that you ran a lot of red lights just now. Is it okay? Lu Sen asked curiously. Weasley ignored the front and turned his head in surprise. Ah? Really? But I remember seeing that thing called green red light. Go when it turns green, stop when it turns red. Am I remembering it correctly? Lu Sen's face, which had just recovered, turned a little paler. He quickly said, be careful. There's a car coming up ahead. Mr. Weasley suddenly realized what was happening and quickly turned his head back, but it was clear that he was not panicked at all. Pay attention, Arthur. We are in the Muggle world. Mrs. Weasley, who was sitting in the passenger seat, scolded him harshly, then turned around and said gently, Lu Sen, don't mind him. He is very curious about Muggle things, but in fact, he doesn't understand many things at all. But, it is indeed very complicated, isn't it? Mr. Weasley was an easygoing guy, and he was really obsessed with Muggle things. So, Lu Sen, did I do something wrong just now? Mr. Weasley asked humbly. Lu Sen thought for a moment and said, it's true that you can stop at a red light and go at a green light, but you have to look at the lane. If you are standing on the left turn lane, you have to look at the left turn light. When the straight light is on, you can only wait in the waiting area. Also, when there are pedestrians on the zebra crossing, you can't drive through even if the light is green. You have to wait until they have passed. Oh! He said suddenly, no wonder I always hear the beeping of horns behind me, and the gesture of passers-by. I thought it was some kind of vulgar etiquette of Muggles. He was very interested in this and was very happy to learn new knowledge. But don't worry. I put a confusion charm on the car, the Muggles will forget about it as soon as they turn around. Haha. He explained with a little pride. So Lu Sen turned the topic to car modification technology, and the twin brothers were no longer sleepy and happily joined the chat group. Mr. Weasley was full of enthusiasm when it came to his beloved car. Honey, there aren't many cars right now. Can I activate the cloaking device? We can travel faster. No. Arthur, what if a Muggle sees us in broad daylight? After discussing it for a while, Mrs. Weasley finally acquiesced when they passed a hidden bend. So Mr. Weasley happily pressed the invisibility switch. Then, the whole car disappeared. This feeling is amazing. It is different from the invisibility cloak or invisibility charm that makes the exterior invisible. The car and the interior are invisible together. Lu Sen only felt a chill, and then his body became transparent. Everyone became transparent. Cool. This is more powerful than my invisibility talisman. I want to learn this. Lu Sen said excitedly. There was sudden laughter in the car. But soon Lu Sen couldn't laugh anymore. Because everything was invisible, the perspective was like he was moving forward quickly in mid-air. When Lu Sen lowered his head, he saw the road moving backwards rapidly, and when he raised his head, he saw a truck coming towards him. Face to face? Ah! Mr. Weasley! You are driving in the opposite direction. We are driving in the wrong direction. Lu Sen's heart was about to jump out. Don't worry. It's faster this way. As he said this, he turned quickly and avoided the oncoming truck at the last moment. But a new crisis strikes again. The car is invisible and no one can see it return to the correct lane. Lu Sen only heard the roar of the engine behind him. When he turned around, he saw an off-road vehicle just over a meter behind him. Mr. Weasley said, "Hold on tight, I'll speed up a little." A little? Wait a minute. It seems. Lu Sen suddenly felt something was wrong. He was already strong enough before, but now he was speeding up a little? This slightly was wrong. Sure enough, the next second, a strong push came over him. The acceleration was comparable to that of a roller coaster, pressing Lu Sen tightly into his seat. This sensory stimulation made him involuntarily hold Ginny's boneless little hand. The soft touch immediately relieved his tension. After coughing to ease the embarrassment, Lu Sen let go of his hand somewhat embarrassedly. Feeling Lu Sen's movements, Ginny's body tensed instantly. She nervously peeked and then remembered that everyone was invisible and no one could see anyone else. So she felt relieved and squeezed Lu Sen's warm and strong big hand. Feeling the other party's response, Lu Sen blinked and instantly stopped feeling carsick. "I didn't utter a single exclamation during the rest of the journey. I just felt that it was a thrilling and wonderful experience." Chapter 94. "Here we are, kids," said Mr. Weasley as he parked the car not far from the leaky cauldron. The Weasley twins quickly discussed, "Mom, since we're already in Diagon Alley, why don't you take us to visit the Galactic Corporation? Yet. We all want to see where you work." Even Percy and Ron looked eager to try. Under the children's pleading, Mrs. Weasley was in a dilemma. She wanted to let her family see the Galaxy Group to broaden their horizons. "But I am afraid of disturbing everyone if I bring my whole family to the company." Lu Sen persuaded, "Let's go together, Mrs. Weasley. We are all curious about what the company looks like. And I don't even know the way." This is of course an excuse. There is only one road in the main street of Diagon Alley. You can find it by just keeping walking. Arthur Weasley finally agreed after a whispered conversation with his wife, but Mrs. Weasley sternly warned the children not to fall behind, make loud noises, run around or touch anything, etc. After saying this, she deliberately glared at the twin brothers. A few people entered the back alley of the bar, passed through the magical wall, and came to the hidden Diagon Alley. After walking for a while, the group stopped in front of a beautiful 3-story office building. This is a building that is obviously different from the surrounding style. First of all, it is not crooked, but stands proudly and uprightly with great dignity. The front is a huge glass wall. You can see the neat and tidy interior from the outside. The first floor is the brightest and most transparent, and it is the company's product display area. The second floor is the business reception area. The third floor is the office area. This architectural style that transcends its time was designed by Lu Sen with reference to the later Apple Incorporated. There are very few beams and columns inside, and it is built with tree-shaped hollow metal. It is complex yet orderly, and every detail exudes an artistic atmosphere. As soon as they entered, staff members came to greet them with a smile. Seeing that it was Mr. and Mrs. Weasley who were leading the group, and looking at the row of red-haired people behind them, he immediately knew who they were. Lu Sen, the only one who doesn't have red hair, is accompanied by Ginny. She is a little angel loved by everyone in the company. So the group began the tour without any hindrance. Ron and his friends were guided by Mrs. Weasley, while Lu Sen gradually left the team under the leadership of Ginny. She pulled Lu Sen and followed behind the others from a distance, personally acting as Lu Sen's tour guide. "Look at the house number yourself. If you don't understand, ask me." "Hey! Is there anyone who introduces it like this?" Lu Sen said with a smile. Ginny rolled her eyes at him playfully. "You are in contact with Mr. Lupin every day, how could you not know what departments the company has?" "Hey! I'm a hands-off boss. I only know a rough outline of the company's situation. He didn't tell me as much as you did." "Really? Of course. You are most familiar with this. What's fun about it?" Ginny pouted and thought for a while, then suddenly her eyes lit up and she said, "Then I'll take you to the costume department." The two left the sightseeing group and turned into a corridor, which was a shortcut to Sanley Company next door. Lu Sen looked around curiously and saw many Muggle industrial sewing machines running automatically. Cutting machine, sewing machine, edge banding machine. Under the control of magic, the fabrics quickly tumbled and jumped, and lined up to enter the machines. The whole process was smooth and flowing. And the entire production process only requires 2 wizards waving their wands. Lu Sen nodded secretly. "What a magical assembly line! Awesome! Continue walking forward, each room on both sides is an assembly line, where different styles of clothing are produced efficiently and orderly. Ginny took Lucien all the way to Mrs. Weasley's office. There are many wooden mannequins here, wearing newly matched clothing samples. The entire wall behind the model is lined with neatly arranged squares, containing hundreds of fabrics, various buttons, accessories, and colorful balls of yarn. Next to the window is a huge desk or sewing platform where Mrs. Weasley usually designs new clothes. There is a comfortable and large sofa next to it, which is Ginny's permanent seat. Ginny asked Lucien to sit down, then took out some candy and snacks from the cabinet to share with him. "Aren't you afraid of tooth decay? Eating so much candy?" Lucien laughed. "My teeth are fine. If you're afraid of cavities, don't eat it. I haven't given it to anyone else." "LOL." Ginny said, baring her teeth and making a face at Lucien. "I'm hungry from wandering around. This snack is just in time." Lucien was really hungry after the bumpy ride in the car. If Ginny hadn't held his hand later, his stomach would have churned. Thinking of the situation in the car, both of them became a little nervous. Lucien pretended to be calm and ate snacks. He even stuffed his mouth with candies that he originally didn't want to eat. Ginny stared at the ceiling, swinging her legs on the edge of the bed, her face gradually turning red, trying to find common topics in her mind. Suddenly her eyes lit up and she said happily, "I almost forgot about her." She turned around, reached into the gap between the sofas, and pulled out something Lucien hadn't seen for a long time. It is shaped like a token, similar to the first-generation magic communicator, and is inlaid with a transparent gem. Lucien tilted his head in thought. This inconspicuous gem above was given by Dumbledore. He thought it was ordinary and plain before, but why does it seem more and more familiar now? Holy shit! Why does this thing look so much like the Philosopher's Stone? Ginny stretched out her little hand and waved it in front of Lucien's eyes. "Why? Don't you recognize me?" "Ah? You know me. The Magic Intelligence Server." "Say it again." "Oh. I said it wrong. It's Ziotan." Only then did Ginny raise her chin and smile with satisfaction. Little fox, Ginny said to the terminal. A smiling emoticon appeared on the interface, and a voice exactly like Ginny's came out. "Hey! I'm here." Lucien, "Oh, this answer is strangely familiar. Look who this is." Ginny pointed the terminal at Lucien and said. The emoji on it blinked, then said unsurely, "Big idiot." Ginny immediately covered her mouth and laughed. "Correct. It's him." Lucien twitched his brows and smiled bitterly. "Who is the big fool? I am in the top 3 in my grade, okay. But you don't know how to ride a broom." Xylee said calmly in a slightly stiff tone. Lucien said angrily, "I'm good at playing magic sled. I won the 2nd place in the competition. But you can't ride a broomstick. I have an extremely high level of magic. The principal even praised me for my talent. But you can't ride a broomstick." Lucien. Ginny was already laughing on the sofa. Lucien was mad and said, "What did you teach her? How dare you call me a big fool? Ah ha ha ha. Nice work, little raccoon. Since you love to laugh so much, I'll let you laugh enough." Lucien pretended to tickle her. Ginny immediately fought back, throwing the candy at the other party as a weapon. The laughter was suddenly interrupted by the sound of footsteps, and the two hurriedly got up to clean up the messy scene. "This is my office. Fred. George. Come here. Don't disturb others," Mrs. Weasley said in a low voice. When she opened the door, she saw Lucien and Ginny sitting in front of the office, fiddling with Little Fox seriously. "Oh. Honey. You are here. I thought." Before Mrs. Weasley could finish, Fred interrupted, "I thought Ginny had kidnapped you. Or Lucien has kidnapped Ginny." Ginny's pretty face turned slightly red. She was so angry that she frequently cast unfriendly glances at the two of them. Then she said, "I saw that Lucien was hungry, so I found her something to eat." Mrs. Weasley believed it and said with concern, "Look at me, what time is it? You must not have eaten anything on the train. Come with me, children. I'll take you to the staff restaurant." Several people immediately perked up and followed Mrs. Weasley to the restaurant on the basement floor. The dining environment and layout here are completely different from those of Hogwarts, and follow the style of later corporate restaurants. The food and drinks were all served buffet style, which was extremely novel to the 4 Weasleys who were visiting for the first time. While everyone was adding delicious food to their plates, Lupin took the time to come over. When he saw Lu Sen, he immediately gave him a hug. Since the Wolfsbane potion was invented in April, Lupin's recent transformations have become much more comfortable. When you turn into a werewolf, you can remain completely sane, no longer bloodthirsty and violent. Just stay in the office and lock the door. This gave Lupin, who had been devastated by the transformation, a rare opportunity to recuperate. He looked much better than the last time he participated in the bobsleigh race. Lupin had a staff meal with everyone, and then took Lu Sen and the twin brothers to visit the magic chess production workshop and laboratory. Several people found endless topics to talk about in R&D, and reluctantly ended the visit after agreeing to discuss it again next time. More than 20 days passed in the blink of an eye during the holiday. In addition to visiting the Galaxy Group, Lu Sen also handled a few small matters. Since last year, Lu Sen has been paying attention to China's bear neighbor, the Soviet Union. There were many drawbacks within the huge bear, and the rifts between member states continued to widen. Since 91, more and more member states have declared independence. Finally, at the end of the year, the entire Soviet Union officially announced its disintegration. With Lu Sen's advance disclosure, Julie and Belle made arrangements for cross-border trade in advance, earned billions of dollars, and gave Lu Sen billions of commissions. It's not about plundering, but exchanging food for weapons. Exchanging textiles for airplanes and cannons. At the same time, we buy back second-hand tanks, armored vehicles, aircraft carriers, and fighter jets at high prices. Settlement with gold bars. No deception. Lu Sen said, apart from anything else, the gold is just worth 100 million points. The disintegrated Soviet Union was in chaos. Many high-ranking officials who controlled a large amount of military resources were trying to find a way out for themselves and were selling off the former Soviet Union's assets without any concealment. The deal went very smoothly. If they sent a few more boxes of liquor, they would generously send back a few truckloads of unopened AK-47s and millions of rounds of ammunition. Many of the weapons and equipment traded were at the price of scrap metal. I contacted my uncle in China in advance and sold them to China, making a profit of a few $100 million. The uncle was very happy and contacted the central government of China to give Lu Sen and others a special contribution award. He also gave Lu Sen a stack of new editions of Analysis of 100 Talisman Problems Every Day and Huanggang Practice Exercise Book. Lu Sen. In addition to weapons, Lu Sen is also jealous of some unpopular legacies of the former Soviet Union. For example, a ternary computer. This thing is completely different from the mainstream binary in the West. In addition to yes or no, it also adds an uncertainty. Without mentioning efficiency and energy consumption, the uncertainty alone is in line with the thinking logic of intelligent creatures. It is very suitable for carrying artificial intelligence. The computers of the former Soviet Union still used bulky and clumsy vacuum tubes, whose size, weight, and energy consumption were dozens or hundreds of times that of mainstream Western transistors. Transistors were the size of sesame seeds, but Soviet vacuum tubes were still the size of quail eggs. With the disintegration of the Soviet Union, ternary computers were completely discontinued. But this thing has enormous potential. A big part of the reason why it failed to develop further is that it was delayed by the corrupt system of the former Soviet Union. Soviet scientists had long proposed to abandon electron tubes and research transistors that were smaller and more promising. However, the bureaucrats and the vested interests of the parts factories banded together and resolutely resisted, causing the Soviet Union to stagnate in the field of computers. It's a pity to think about it. Another big toy Lu Sen wants is the Buran space shuttle. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the complete Buran was forgotten in a corner and lost the opportunity to soar into the universe. But the Buran space shuttle was too big. There was no way to get it back, so Lu Sen had to settle for the next best thing and asked them to copy the full set of drawings and technical data. As for how to get the blueprints and information? Of course, Urquatu and gold bars are the way. We are a scrap collector. I won't embarrass you. The business has not been concluded, so it's not too much to just take a look, right? Lupin, who was in the negotiation team, I can double you. Done. A mountain of information? I can cast a shrinking spell. Done. He made a copy of the information he got back and gave it to Uncle Hwasia, and Lu Sen received another banner and a stack of summer homework from the People's Cultivation Education Press. Uncle. You are so kind to me. Thank you. Chapter 95. In addition to dealing with matters related to the former Soviet Union during the holidays, Lu Sen's most active work was to develop flying props with his father Lu Qiuzhong. Lu Sen's inability to ride the flying broomstick properly has become a problem for him. Fortunately, Lu Sen had accumulated a lot of experience in modifying objects, and the prototype of the first flying backpack was soon born. Just when Lu Sen was thinking about where to test the equipment, Ginny invited Lu Sen again. Lu Sen couldn't remember how many times he had invited her. Originally, this little girl had the company of her brothers, so she didn't need to come to the company with Mrs. Weasley. But she would come every few days, and every time she would be bored and follow Lu Sen around, watching him do research all day. Then when she left, she would complain about being bored and say she would never come again. But she would show up at the company again a few days later. This time Lu Sen agreed readily, and the other party immediately jumped up and down with a victorious expression. The news that Lu Sen was going to visit the Weasley family spread in the Weasley family chat group immediately. Ron, wow! My sister is really awesome. I have invited him several times, but Lu Sen always said he was not done yet. Fred, you certainly can't, but we Ginny's got two of us. George, exactly. Who can resist the charm of our sister? Fred, are you sure you're not powerless against her? Ginny, shut up. If you keep saying that, I'll throw yellow paint on the quilts you hung outside. The Weasleys gasped in unison. Ron, surrender. Fred, +1 for surrender. George, +1 for surrender. Percy, +1 for surrender. Then, under Mrs. Weasley's order, the whole family cleaned the house inside and out, waiting for Lu Sen to arrive. Lu Sen planned to use fluo powder to get there. Although this cheap and efficient way of travel would make people feel embarrassed, its efficiency was beyond reproach. Early in the morning, he stood in front of the fireplace at home, grabbed a handful of glowing fluo powder, and then shouted in a clear voice, Devon Ottery Saint Catchpole the Burrow. The next second, green flames rose in the fireplace, filling the entire fireplace. Lu Sen only felt dizzy, and his whole body seemed to be twisted into a stream by the vortex of the flush toilet, and then instantly crossed a long distance and was thrown into another fireplace. The flames dissipated, and Lu Sen stumbled forward a few steps. As soon as he regained his sight, he was surrounded by several red-haired figures. Lu Sen! Welcome! Welcome! Mr. and Mrs. Weasley said enthusiastically. Then came Ron, the Weasley twins and Percy, and then Ginny, who was hugging her shoulders and blushing. Lu Sen noticed that Ginny was wearing a pink pajamas today and a cute little bear hairpin on her head, which made her look particularly cute. Lu Sen greeted everyone one by one, and only then did the dizziness in his head slowly subside. The experience of being a fluo fan was not at all comfortable. He took out his wand, thought about it, and put it back, then took out an M1911 Cub Pink Bunny Color Edition. Set the mode to clean, then shoot it in the head. If this scene was seen by Muggles, they would definitely feel nervous. But the few people in front of them were genuine pure-blood wizards and did not feel anything at all. After a crisp click sound, a cleaning spell came out from the small pistol, instantly removing all the dust on Lu Sen's body. After hitting the ground twice more, Lu Sen blew on the muzzle of the gun after completing his mission. Unfortunately, no one understood what this unnecessary action was. You can't use magic outside of school. It's not me who used it. It's a gun. Lu Sen joked. Ron said indifferently, it's okay, the Ministry of Magic can't detect who used it. The twins snatched the pistol and played with it skillfully. Fred said, he's showing off to us. George, yeah. Has the technology improved? They made it so small to show off. But we are not idle either. I will show you our new invention later. Ginny kicked up her feet and shouted, let me see. Let me see. After grabbing the pistol without any explanation, Ginny fired several shots at the house, appearing extremely happy. Do you like it? Here you go. If you need a model, just tell me, or Fred and George, we can modify it. Ginny's face was full of smiles when she got the new toy. She will go to school this year, but she doesn't have her own wand yet. It's quite interesting to experience the joy of releasing magic in advance. Thank you, Lu Sen. After saying that, the girl's face blushed again and she ran upstairs embarrassedly. Ron patted Lu Sen on the shoulder, she keeps talking about you. If you don't come, our ears will be calloused. Lu Sen smiled. This little girl has been talking about it a lot in the company during this period, not to mention on the phone. Mrs. Weasley began to make breakfast, while Lu Sen looked around curiously. They were in the kitchen, which was a bit crowded, with a cleanly polished wooden dining table and a few chairs in the middle. On the mantelpiece are several books, Magic Your Cheese, The Magic of Baking Bread, Creating a Feast. There was also a very thick book among the cooking books, with a different style. Lu Sen took it curiously, and the cover was written in gold-plated font, Gilderoy Lockhart teaches you how to get rid of household pests. Lu Sen. There was a handsome wizard on the cover, smiling with shining white teeth and winking at everyone who looked at him. When Lu Sen was speechless, Fred whispered beside him, Mom admires him very much. Don't talk nonsense, Fred. Mrs. Weasley had obviously heard it, and her face was a little red. If you think you know more than Lockhart, then go and get rid of the gnomes in the garden. The twins instantly became obedient and showed helpless expressions to Lu Sen. Lu Sen noticed that the clock on the wall was special, it didn't show the time. There are photos of each Weasley on the spoon-like hands, and the clock face has words like home, school, work, on the road, prison, hospital, extremely dangerous, etc. The location or status of each member can be displayed. The mirror on the wall was also unusual. When Ron passed by, the mirror suddenly shouted, Tuck your shirt in, you're sloppy. Lu Sen touched his chin. He felt a little itchy when he saw a mirror. Suddenly he missed the working mirror. On the other side, under the magical command of Mrs. Weasley, the frying pan and spatula started working automatically, and the eggs and sausages floated up and jumped into the pot in an orderly manner. In a short while, a simple but nutritious breakfast is ready. Mrs. Weasley kept adding food to Lu Sen's plate, and Lu Sen didn't remember how much sausage and fried eggs he had eaten. If he hadn't had the idea to pretend to burp, Mrs. Weasley would have worried that he hadn't eaten enough. Arthur Weasley worked overtime all night and returned home exhausted when everyone was about to finish dinner. Kids. Good morning. Oh, Lu Sen. When did you come? He first greeted Lu Sen enthusiastically, and then wolfed down his breakfast. The department has been searching for contraband since yesterday. We've been busy all night. We'll have to work overtime for the next period of time. It's really annoying. After everyone had finished their meal, Mrs. Weasley controlled the pots and pans to be washed automatically, then she dressed and went to work via flow of powder. Led by Ron, Lu Sen walked up the narrow stairs and visited other parts of the burrow. Chapter 96. The stairs were of different heights and winding. Lu Sen took every step very carefully, which gave him the feeling of a mini version of Hogwarts. The second floor is Percy's room. Ron said that he hardly went out during the holiday and he didn't know what he was writing every day. The Weasley twins' room was on the third floor. Lu Sen went in to take a look and smelled a strong smell of gunpowder as soon as he entered the room. There are many strange things in the house, and there are many boxes, which are filled with raw materials for inventions and finished Weasley products. They have already received some orders for skipping school supplies and magic fireworks. Another brighter and more spacious room on the same floor belonged to Ginny. The door was half open. A little head popped out and saw Lu Sen, then she immediately shrank back and closed the door. You don't know, it's incredible that she is so shy. She never closes the door normally. Ron shrugged and introduced. There is a small room on the other side of the third floor. That's Bill's. If Charlie comes back, he will live there. It's full of their awards. Ron introduced. There was only one room on the fourth floor, and it belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. Going up one more floor, I reached the end of the stairs. The door had some paint peeling off and a small sign hung on it, Ron's room. After opening the door, Lu Sen was surprised to find that the house was orange-yellow. The sloping ceiling and walls were covered with Quidditch posters, all of which belonged to the same team. Even Ron's quilt was painted with the team's logo, a speeding cannonball and two black letters C. The Chudley Cannons. Ron introduced. The club is ranked 9th. There are many books about Quidditch on the bookshelf, such as Magical Quidditch, History of the Golden Snitch, He Flies Like a Madman. There are various small ornaments under the bookshelf, including Wizard Chess, Hogwarts Castle Crystal Ball, and a Ford Anglia car model, which is exactly the same as the flying one. Seeing Lu Sen looking around the room, Ron was a little nervous, but he pretended to be calm and said, although it's not very big, it's still a home. Lu Sen smiled, this is the coolest home I've ever seen, Ron. Ron blushed, feeling a little embarrassed. What is this? Lu Sen asked, pointing at the cards in the corner. Ron perked up. Oh, that's an automatic shuffling deck of cards. It can also automatically deal the cards. Cool. I'll study it when I have time. What is this? Lu Sen turned around and found a large fish tank on the windowsill, with a lot of densely packed black things in it. They are frog eggs. I fished them out of the pond. You are so awesome. I only caught tadpoles when I was a kid. Oh, Ban. Long time no see. Lu Sen showed a kind, eerie, smile and picked up the fat mouse that was basking in the sun beside the fish tank. Ban opened his little eyes in confusion, and when he saw Lu Sen, he immediately began to tremble, and recalled the fear of being dominated by the cage. That was a prison, recuperation, life that made Mouse unbearable to look back on. It was also his lost youth and dignity. Lu Sen put Ban down and suddenly found something moving in the garden outside the window. They had a bald round head, a small body, and rough skin, like potatoes with hands and feet. Ron. What are those? Ron stretched his head to take a look and said helplessly, it's the goblins. I just cleaned them up a few days ago. They're back again. Lu Sen's eyes suddenly lit up. Come on. Let me help you clean up. I haven't seen a goblin yet. After going downstairs and out the door, Lu Sen looked back and saw the whole picture of the burial ground for the first time. The kitchen and living room at the bottom is a big round house with red tiles and a pointed roof, just like an ordinary Muggle house. It even looks a bit like a round pigsty. However, there are 2 wooden towers on top, and the large suspended area is supported by thin wooden pillars. It is crooked, very characteristic of wizard architecture. The outside of the house is full of country atmosphere. There are 2 little pigs in the pigsty, and there are fat chickens and ducks walking around in the yard. The garden is very big, with all kinds of flowers and plants growing very lushly. There is also a green pond with many frogs swimming in it. Ron's face turned red again, and he said embarrassedly, it's a bit messy, definitely not as beautiful as yours. No. This is the breath of life. I like it very much. Besides, I don't have such a big garden at home. The 2 came to a bunch of peonies. Ron saw the right moment, lowered his head and reached out, grabbing a goblin. The goblin kicked and stomped at Ron with its calloused little feet, but Ron had anticipated it and stretched out his arms to lift the goblin up. You have to do this. Ron grabbed the goblin's feet and lifted him above his head, then swung his arms in wide circles like a lasso. Goblins have low IQs, but they can speak a few human words. Historically, they were classified as humans, but people found that the wisdom of goblins was not enough to understand what law and order were, so they were eventually reclassified as magical creatures. Let me go. Ah. The goblin yelled. With a whoosh, Ron threw the goblin in his hand out and it landed far outside the fence. We have to make them dizzy so they can't find their way back. Ron shrugged. At this time Ginny also ran over. That's strange, you never helped after you were 6. Ron said curiously. It's none of your business. Can't I just move around? Lolyalu. Ginny replied, sticking out her tongue. After saying that, he grabbed a goblin, knocked it unconscious skillfully, and then threw it far away. Beautiful. You have great athletic talent. Lu Sen praised sincerely, and the other person's face turned red instantly. Lu Sen also grabbed one, swung it like the other 2, and then threw it out with force. The 3 of them threw a few more, and Lu Sen was surprised to find that the remaining goblins did not hide away, but instead came over curiously to watch the fun. Lu Sen suddenly understood why he was so gentle towards these annoying pests, they were so funny. The personalities of these little guys were exactly the same as a mythical animal called silly roe deer in northeast China. Hunters don't even need to aim. They just need to shoot into the sky when they find a robe. Then the robes in the distance will curiously run over to watch the fun. Oh my god! What's making such a big noise? Let me take a look. After one was killed, the rest of the stupid roe deer started to run for their lives, but they would stop after a few steps and look back at the excitement. Where are you? Why don't you chase after them? Come on. Then they use their intelligence to make themselves protected animals. Lu Sen collected his scattered thoughts and suddenly asked, Ron, what do goblins like to eat? Ron stopped his boring work, thought for a moment and said, vegetables? They always destroy the vegetables in the garden. Carrots, tomatoes, and so on. Ginny disagreed, no. They like fruit. I've fed them apples and oranges. Ron was shocked at the time. You actually fed them. I'm really impressed. Okay, okay. Vegetables and fruits, right. Lu Sen smiled, pulled out the thunder wand, and cast a transformation spell on a stone. The stone twisted and turned into a carrot with legs. Lu Sen waved his magic wand again and again, and conjured up apples, tomatoes, cauliflowers, all with legs. Then, under Lu Sen's command, they began to dance in a rhythmic square dance. It was the kind of dance that people would dance while walking in the streets and alleys of China in the future. Lu Sen touched his chin and felt that something was missing, so he conjured up a small speaker, which played a melodious and rhythmic divine song. The vast horizon is my love. Flowers are blooming at the foot of the endless green mountains. What kind of rhythm? As the magical music sounded, the dance steps of the vegetable and fruit team immediately reached a new level. Soon after them, a row of dancing goblins followed, each of them happily twisting their hands and feet. As the team grew stronger, Lu Sen waved his magic wand, and the leading fruits and vegetables began to lead the team away. Lu Sen nodded with satisfaction, and turned around to see Ron and Ginny blushing and putting down their dancing hands. Chapter 97. On the first night at Ron's house, Lu Sen volunteered to go to the kitchen, ready to show off his skills to the Weasleys. Ron quickly stopped him. How can we let guests cook? You'd better just play with us. Ginny's eyes lit up and she asked, You can cook? Really? Of course. And it's Chinese food. Let me give you a taste of the authentic Oriental flavor. Lu Sen said with a profound look on his face. But Ginny's next sentence completely wiped him out. So can you make General Tso's chicken? How about sweet and sour pork? How about fortune cookies? Can you make them? Where did you hear this? Lu Sen said embarrassedly. Ginny said proudly with an expression as if she was about to praise me, hee. I saw it in a Muggle magazine that my dad brought back. It said that you can eat authentic Chinese food in the Chinese Street district in the UK. What's the name of the street? Chinatown. Lu Sen rubbed Ginny's hair and continued, but those are not authentic Chinese dishes. Ginny's eyes flashed with ferocity, and she slapped Lu Sen's hand away. I don't care. I want to eat General Tso's chicken. Lu Sendiao said, Okay. Then kill a chicken for me. Ginny walked out of the door angrily, and soon Ron and Lu Sen heard the sound of chaos outside the yard. Ron was shocked and said, No way. Ginny usually treasures those chickens. She wouldn't even let us eat them. Lu Sen grinned and ran out quickly. What a scene it would be if Ginny came in with a bloody chicken. But Lu Sen was relieved when he got to the yard. The other party didn't want to catch the chicken at all. Instead, he chased and hit his fat chicken with stones and muttered, Run! Or I'll eat you. Lu Sen shook his head, called him back, and said that the ingredients were ready. When Ginny heard that she didn't have to kill her own chickens, she snorted and pretended to be angry, but actually returned to the kitchen with a smile on her face. Lu Sen took out his door from his backpack, put it up next to the fireplace, went in and took out the wok, seasonings and ingredients one by one. Then put on your apron and chef's hat and start cooking. The clanging sound of Lu Sen cutting vegetables quickly attracted the attention of the other Weasleys. First, the Weasley twins came over to watch the fun with shocked faces. When the food started to be cooked, Percy ran out of the room when he smelled the aroma. Lu Sen calculated the time well and served the delicious dishes on the table before the Weasleys got off work. Pork in sweet and sour sauce. Boiled fish. Braised lion's head. Corn with pine nuts. Celery with cashews. And General Tso's chicken that Ginny ordered. I used sweet and sour chicken with pineapple as a substitute. Lu Sen also took out some Coke from inside the door to share with everyone. Mr. Weasley showed great interest in this drink and asked a lot of questions about the bubbles in the drink. When he learned that it was carbon dioxide that was at work, he immediately gave a heartfelt, but inexplicably impressive, compliment. Muggles are so smart. They don't know magic, but they have so many wonderful ideas. The whole dinner was held in a peaceful and joyful atmosphere. After everyone showed curiosity about Lu Sen's chopsticks, Lu Sen took out another handful and shared them with everyone. Hey, isn't this your spare wand? Ron asked in surprise. Ah? Haha, multifunctional chopsticks. No, these are multifunctional magic wands. Don't worry. They are all new. Ginny had just tried hard to imitate Lu Sen and picked up a piece of General Tso's chicken, enjoying the taste. When she heard that it was a wand, she was surprised and held the chopsticks in front of her. What did you say? This is a wand? How can it be a wand? Ginny waved the chopsticks in disbelief, and the next second, a small swirling firework emerged from the tip of the chopsticks. Everyone cheered and praised Ginny for being able to perform a little magic before even going to school. Fred joked, "Why don't you just not buy a wand, Ginny? Just take this to school." George, yet. This was made by Lu Sen himself. Ginny's face flushed immediately, and she glanced at Lu Sen secretly, but the next second she suddenly reacted and asked, "Wait. How do you have so many wands?" Of course Lu Sen couldn't tell her that this was for self-destruction. She would think he was crazy. He took a sip of Coke and said with a smile, "I'm a wand maker. No, I'm a wand-making enthusiast. Magic wands are consumables. I have to make some extra as backup." Ginny curled her lips and didn't quite believe what Lu Sen said, but after knowing that Lu Sen had a lot of chopsticks, she boldly used them to pick up the food. The food on the table was quickly cleared away by everyone. Mrs. Weasley sent the children away and cleared the dishes away with a wave of her wand. Lu Sen was very envious of this magic control technique and almost shouted, "Coach, I want to learn this." Mrs. Weasley was a little embarrassed. "What's there to learn? The fact that you cook such delicious dishes is already perfect. Magic like cleaning the kitchen is something that only girls can learn." Hearing this, Ginny secretly glared at her mother, turned around and ran away with a red face. After Lu Sen's advice, Mrs. Weasley gave him some guidance on how to use magic. It was somewhat similar to when Dumbledore was guiding him. At first glance it seemed like he was saying nothing, but upon closer inspection he discovered that it contained the secret of simplicity. You just have to believe that they are all living things. Each of them has its own personality and temper. Treat them like your children. This is magic. Mrs. Weasley said gently. Lu Sen savored and observed every detail in the humble house, the pot brushes and frying pans that worked in perfect harmony, the wool and long needles that knitted sweaters automatically. Mrs. Weasley's words are similar to what Dumbledore said at that time, you shouldn't let the magic be fixed in the mold of fantasy, but tell her who she is. Lu Sen returned to Ron's room thoughtfully until the other party took out the Muggle war chess. After a fierce battle, Lu Sen finally won a game. Unlike Ron's strategic play, Lu Sen's play is called a risky move. To put it bluntly, it is called playing against the rules. A rogue play. The burrow was still lively at night. Lu Sen, Ron, and Ginny played Crackling Explosion for a while, and then played Plants vs. Zombies for a while. From time to time, we could hear the twins fighting, Percy's complaints, and Mrs. Weasley's calls for justice downstairs. It only gradually died down when we turned off the lights and went to bed. Lu Sen finally slept in Ron's room. He couldn't feel such a family atmosphere in the small villa inside the door. When Ron started snoring, Lu Sen was still chatting with Ginny on his cell phone in high spirits. "Ginny, are you asleep? Can you get used to living in such a noisy house?" Lu Sen, "Who, the user you are calling has fallen asleep, please call again later." Ginny. Lu Sen, speechless. "I was just kidding." Ginny, "No, I'm throwing kitchen knives at you." Lu Sen. "Ginny, you dare throw me?" Lu Sen, "I dare not. I was just blowing bubbles, okay?" Ginny, smile, "Let's continue with Chinese food tomorrow. I want to eat more." Lu Sen, "Ha ha ha. To conquer a woman, you must first conquer her stomach." Ginny, "No one can defeat me. Believe it or not, I will beat you up right now. If you dare to fight back, I will cry for help." Lu Sen bullied me. Lu Sen, "I am convinced. I am convinced." Ginny, "He he he. That's more like it." Dingling clang, clang clang clang. Lu Sen, "Did you hear any sound?" Ginny, "Ah, that's my ghoul, it does this when it's too quiet." Lu Sen, "Why do I feel the sound is very close to me?" Ginny, "He he he. It's in the attic above your head. Don't be afraid." Lu Sen, "Count to 123. Ginny, "What? 123. Hey? Why is my ghoul silent?" Lu Sen, "I don't know. Good night. See you tomorrow." Lu Sen turned over with satisfaction, and a golden talisman appeared on the ceiling. "Ghoul, what did I do to offend anyone? Woohoo! This guy is so scary." Chapter 98. Lu Sen's days at the Weasley house are very fulfilling. He drives away goblins, plays chess, cooks Chinese food for everyone, and invents with the Weasley twins. Mr. Arthur Weasley was obsessed with Muggle things, and his warehouse was filled with a large number of Muggle items. Some were collected from Muggles, and some were contraband seized by the Ministry. But without exception, they were all taken apart by Mr. Weasley, modified with magic, and then installed back. This brought a lot of inspiration to Lu Sen and the Weasley twins, which directly led to the explosions coming from the twins' bedroom becoming more frequent than before. Considering the danger of the experiment, at Lu Sen's suggestion, the three people changed the experimental location to the warehouse. Mrs. Weasley was always against the twins doing research, thinking that those magic gadgets would be a waste of time. But several inventions of the two brothers have now brought them regular income: Weasley Magic Comb, Plants vs. Zombies, funny props, etc. This changed Mrs. Weasley's opinion of the two, and she no longer forced them to pass 12 owls. It seemed that joining the Galaxy group after graduation was also a good choice. In the Owl's ordinary wizarding level test, the eldest brother Bill passed 12 certificates. Percy just received his report card, and he also passed 12 certificates. This is quite impressive. For example, if you want to become a special police officer in the wizarding world, or you need 5 certificates. But many wizards can't pass 5. On this day, the three were debugging Lu Sen's flying backpack. Ron, who was playing with the magic phone next to him, suddenly said, "Strange, why didn't Harry reply to my message? And I asked Errol to send a letter but he didn't reply either." Lu Sen put down the tools in his hands, slapped his forehead and said, "Oh no! I forgot about poor Harry. I found it when I sent him the photo album." Lu Sen certainly knew what was going on. Harry must have been locked in the room and not allowed to come into contact with any magical things. Calculating the date, Harry's birthday is coming soon. So, don't worry, leave it to me. Lu Sen came up with a plan and picked up the phone to contact his uncle. A few days later, on July 7 St, number 31, Privet Drive. "Listen, kid. You stay indoors. Today is the day the Blanchette family is coming to visit. Don't mess with me." Today is Harry's birthday, but no one in the Dursley family even remembered it. They were all busy welcoming a distinguished guest, who is said to be a big investor. If they can reach a deal with him, they can directly exchange it for a sea view villa. Since a few days ago, the Dursleys have been busy practicing how to open the door, what expression to use to greet, etc. Harry couldn't help but feel sick at the thought of his fat cousin daily showing that disgusting fake smile. There was no portion for Harry on the table full of food and beautiful cakes. He was only allowed to eat a piece of bread before being driven out of the living room. Harry sighed as he walked to his room. He missed Hogwarts and his friends so much. But on the first day of the holiday, all his magic-related things were confiscated, and his right to write letters was cut off. Even his owl hadn't come out of the cage for a long time. But when he returned to his room, he was shocked. A strange creature with huge ears and eyes as big as tennis balls was jumping on his bed. It was Dobby the house elf who came. He knew that terrible things would happen in Hogwarts in the new school year, so he secretly ran away from his master's house to persuade Harry not to go back to school. How could Harry agree to this? Hogwarts was his home. When he learned that Dobby had withheld his friend's letters for such a long time, he became even angrier and demanded that Dobby return the letters in a firm attitude. So the naughty Dobby ran to the living room and snapped his fingers to make the cake float. "Promise yourself, Mr. Potter. Don't go back to Hogwarts," Dobby threatened, blinking his big eyes. "No," Harry said in a low voice, "please, they'll kill me. Harry Potter must promise not to return to school." "Dobby, please. Promise, sir." "I cannot." Dobby gave him a sad look. "That's all Dobby can do, sir. It's for Harry Potter's own good." But just when Dobby was about to throw the cake at the guest, a nimble figure quickly stepped forward, picked up the fruit plate beside him and nimbly caught the falling cake. Of course the one who was more shocked than Dobby was Harry. He said in disbelief, Lu Sen. The distinguished guest turned out to be my roommate?" "Good evening, Harry. Why did you come down just now? Is this the surprise you prepared?" Lu Sen blinked and put the cake down steadily. The Dursleys were completely stunned. From the angle they saw, Harry threw the cake at the guest, and then the guest's child caught the falling cake at an extremely fast speed. "Ah, this is my nephew. He's not very smart and gets nervous when he meets strangers. Dudley explained in a panic, sweat starting to form on his chubby forehead. Mr. Bell. He didn't mean to play a trick on you or your nephew. The distinguished guests who came were Lu Sen and Uncle Bill. To deal with a traditional and snobbish businessman like Dudley, Uncle Bell was the most suitable person. Bell waved his hand to stop Dudley and asked Lu Sen, do you know this gentleman? Lu Sen nodded in agreement. Uncle, let me introduce you, this is my classmate Harry Potter. Then he winked at Harry and said, Harry, this is my Uncle Bell, chairman of the Galaxy Group. Harry was confused. Wasn't the chairman Lu Sen? The point was, why were they here? What was even more confusing was Dobby, who had failed to cause trouble in the corner. The unfolding of the plot in the living room was completely beyond the little guy's expectations. Seeing Lu Sen's playful look, Dobby's heart suddenly tightened, and a sense of terror as if being stared at by a giant dragon came over him. Lu Sen secretly used legilimency to send a message to Dobby, your young master owes me 100 gold galleons, go back and keep an eye on him. Is he trying to default on his debt? Dobby shuddered suddenly, and quickly snapped his fingers and disappeared. No one else knew about the exchange with Dobby, they just thought that Lu Sen was tilting his head and looking at Harry. Dudley swallowed and loosened the tie around his neck. He asked suspiciously, Mr. Bell, is your nephew a classmate of Harry? I wonder where he goes to school. Bell heard the other party's implication and did not answer. Instead, he took out a document and handed it over. Dudley took one look, then his eyes widened, and he immediately turned around with ridiculous little steps, trembling all over and turning the pages. Lu Sen pulled Harry to sit on the sofa, handed him some fruits and snacks, and gave him a look that told him to watch the show with peace of mind. After reading the document, Dudley put on a more respectful expression. He rubbed his hands and said, Dear Mr. Bell. Your presence really makes my humble home proud. Bell has been dealing with various businessmen for many years, and he has long been able to control the pressure of a superior. He said in a low voice, the Galaxy Group originally looked down on small companies like Granning, but who can blame Harry, he is my nephew's classmate. The following conversation became much more harmonious, especially when Dudley learned that Bell was also an ordinary person, which made him completely let down his guard and insistence. It was the first time that Harry sat at the Dudleys' dining table in such a formal occasion. In previous similar situations, he had to work in the kitchen or pretend not to exist. After the meal, the Dudleys went out to see them off respectfully, and watched enviously as Lu Sen and the other got into a limited edition Rolls-Royce. The car window rolled down, and Lu Sen shouted, Harry! Keep in touch. I'll tell you when there's any inside information from the company. Bye. That night, Harry sent a message to Lu Sen on his magic phone, Lu Sen. Thanks to you and Uncle Bell. My uncle and his family returned all my things to me right after you left. And they treated me much better. How did you do it? Lu Sen, haha. That's easy. I bought the company where he worked. Harry? Chapter 99. Harry's life became much better after Lu Sen's visit to the Dudleys. The magic book and phone were returned to him, so he was no longer out of touch. The meals also returned to normal. No longer was there clear soup passed through the crack in the door or bread without butter, but now he could eat at the dining table with his cousin Dudley. Whenever Mr. and Mrs. Vernon wanted to find something to vent their anger on Harry, Harry would turn the topic to Lu Sen and his Uncle Bell, or talk about the Galaxy Group and its subsidiaries, such as Granning. This trick worked every time. When Vernon heard the two names, he could only force an ugly smile. After all, he was working for the Galaxy Group. After no longer having to worry about Harry's safety, Lu Sen returned to Ron's house. Arthur Weasley was still working overtime. He was busy all night every day and only came back early in the morning to have breakfast. 9 houses were raided. Old man Mundungus Fletcher tried to use magic on me while my back was turned. Mr. Weasley took a sip of his tea and breathed a sigh of relief. Did you find anything, Dad? Asked Fred eagerly. Just some shrinking house keys and a biting kettle. Mr. Weasley is in the misuse of Muggle artifacts department, which sounds useless, but is actually a department with law enforcement powers. And Mr. Weasley was the man who wrote the laws. He also quietly left a loophole in the law. Although it is forbidden to modify Muggle items without permission, as long as the Muggles do not see it or do not intend to use the modified items, it is not illegal. There is a lot of room for maneuver here. For example, his car. If he had a little bit of crooked thoughts, there would definitely be a lot of people putting money into his pocket. But obviously he is not that kind of person. The reason why Lu Sen was in a hurry to return to the burrow was because an important equipment had reached the testing stage. Are you ready? The 7th startup test. Begin. In the paddock not far from the burrow, the twins said in unison. The next moment, Lu Sen, wearing a full set of Galaxy Group protective clothing, floated up. On his back was a silver-white metallic backpack that looked very simple and light. It was exactly the flying backpack that Lu Sen had been dreaming of. Although it sounds very sci-fi and its appearance is also so, this equipment is indeed a magical creation through and through. Wow! This is a great flight. Very stable. Let's try the speed. After the twins finished speaking, they immediately got on their broomsticks and looked back at Lu Sen provocatively. Haha! Don't run! Look, I'm going to pass you. Lu Sen's mind moved, and the flying backpack behind him immediately increased the output of magic power, providing him with a higher speed. Oh! Oh! Flying feels so good! Lu Sen flew freely around the burrow and felt the freedom like a bird. At this time, Ginny also rode a beautiful flying broom into the sky. It was Lu Sen's birthday gift to her, the latest Nimbus 2001. Ginny's flying talent is as good as her brother's. She can easily control the Nimbus 2001, like a nimble falcon in the sky. Lu Sen increased his speed to the limit and soon overtook the twins' Comet 300. But he didn't feel happy for long, as there was a sound of wind behind him. You are too slow. Ginny leaned against Lu Sen's back. She also leaned over in mid-air and patted Lu Sen's helmet. Aha! You're so arrogant, little girl. Don't let me catch you. Another voice came from behind, I'm leaving first too. Come on, buddy. It was Ron. He was riding the Nissan 2000 modified that Lu Sen gave him. Why add the word modified? Because this was the one that had been disassembled countless times. Many of the parts were not the original ones, but had been modified by Lu Qiuzhong and others. The flying speed is just as good as the new 2001. Lu Sen followed closely, but Ginny and Ron were not only fast, but also very agile. Every time Lu Sen approached, the brother and sister would dodge swiftly and speed up to overtake him. The few of them flew farther and farther, gradually leaving the shabby dwelling and flying towards the distant mountain. Ginny left a trail of afterimages in the air, turning back from time to time to tease Lu Sen. You're so slow. Come catch up with me. Someone's backpack won't work. Ron also assisted, a flying broom is still better. Just chase it slowly. Haha. Lu Sen quickly shouted slogans to buff himself, for the Horde. Demacia. For the glory of the Northern God. Of course, apart from saying it's great, there's no point in doing that. The speed of the jetpack has been set to the maximum, but it's still no match for the Nimbus 2001 and 2000 Kai. Suddenly Lu Sen felt a burning sensation on his back, followed by a sharp twisting sound from the flight backpack. Lu Sen thought to himself that this was bad, and quickly pressed the emergency button. The flying backpack quickly separated, and a violent explosion occurred behind him. Lu Sen was spinning in the air and falling towards a house, but he was not in a hurry and reached out to take out the thunder wand. After a few breaths, he finished the spell and stepped on the wand. Get up! The falling speed slowed down rapidly, and the spinning posture also stabilized. But Ron and Ginny didn't see the scene, and their panicked voices came from beside him. Catch me, bro! I'm here to save you! There was a pine tree right in front of Lu Sen. He could have easily avoided it, but the helping hands extending from both sides blocked his escape path. Ah! There's a tree ahead. Quickly open! The brother and sister were separated, but Lu Sen was in dire straits, Duan. Fortunately, just before the impact, the protective suit on his body unfolded at explosive speed. Ginny and the other girl widened their eyes, their outstretched hands hanging in the air, staring blankly at Lu Sen, who had expanded into a big ball and crashed into a pine tree. After a few seconds, the protective suit automatically retracted after absorbing the impact, and Lu Sen, with stars in his eyes, fell from the tree branches. Looking at Lu Sen falling repeatedly between the tree branches, Ron thoughtfully extended his hand to block his sister's view. When Lu Sen opened his eyes dazedly, he found that there were not only 4 red-haired Weasleys standing beside him, but also a familiar face grinning with gloating expression. Your way of visiting others is very special, Lu Sen. Cedric. Ha ha ha. I actually fell at your house. Oh no! The tree in front of your house blocked my way. My jetpack was broken. Pay me now. With the help of the other party, Lu Sen stood up and looked around again. This was a very normal building. At least it was not a patchwork building like the burrow. Muggles could not find any fault with it. Lu Sen knew before that the handsome senior lived just a few miles from Ron's house, and he had wanted to visit him for a long time. The Weasley twins have picked up the wreckage of the flying backpack, and the Hogwarts research team gathered here to conduct further research on the backpack. Ginny was not interested in this. She was relieved to see that Lu Sen was safe and sound, and then she took Ron to play on the flying broom. The sharp-eyed Cedric immediately spotted the new equipment they were riding, so the topic of several people instantly turned to Quidditch, and Lu Sen was left aside. Lu Sen, hi? The next day, Cedric came as scheduled, and Lu Sen put on his apron again and started his cooking demonstration. Under the guidance of Mrs. Weasley, he also began to try to use his wand to control the pots and pans, and make the ingredients jump into the pot automatically. With the help of the Thunder Wand, the whole cooking process not only has a magical feel, but also an unexpected sci-fi feel. Who told him to have a lightning chain connecting the ingredients and the stove while he was cooking? If it were before, Lu Sen would definitely not be able to control so many things to work together at the same time. But inspired by Mrs. Weasley, he learned some magic tricks. The main secret is, don't control the objects deliberately, but believe that each object has its own life and let them work on their own. After trying several times, Lu Sen gradually found the feeling and classified this technique as the unreasonable magic, the power of my thinking. With this mentality and skills, Chef Lu no longer needs to sweat profusely when cooking. Just wave your magic wand and activate the power of my thinking. Imagine the ingredients and pots and pans as a team that works together seamlessly. Let them work on their own. This really saved a lot of trouble, but Lu Sen found that when Ginny looked at him, there were many little stars in her eyes. It was scary. After tasting Lu Sen's cooking, Cedric couldn't help but look at him with admiration. I didn't expect you could cook besides wrecking the world. Of course Lu Sen just smiled and said nothing, and wrote it down in his little notebook. After a hearty meal, everyone gathered in the garden, ready for a small Quidditch game. Cedric is also a good Quidditch player, so he certainly can't miss this game. He, Lu Sen, and Ron team up to play against the Weasley twins and Ginny. 3-on-3. It was Lu Sen's first time playing Quidditch. He felt extremely excited and had a lot of fun running around on the small field. However, the picture of him being a standing person mixed in with 5 figures riding on flying broomsticks was a bit incongruous. Finally, the 5 people agreed that Lu Sen must ride something. With a face full of resentment, Lu Sen had no choice but to fly to the warehouse and look for something to ride among Mr. Weasley's miscellaneous items to make the scene look more presentable. An axe? A shovel? A rocking horse? A vacuum cleaner? A flush toilet? Anything else? Let me see what else I can find. This one is fine. After a while, the 4 Weasleys and Cedric had to hold back their laughter in order to continue playing. Because Lu Sen was riding a bicycle. Ooh! Steal! Tackle! Ha ha ha! Quidditch is fun! Lu Sen was having fun flying in the air, but the 5 of them gradually turned unhappy. Then he started chasing Lu Sen and beating him. Lu Sen, bicycles are great. They are comfortable to sit on, and they have handlebars and a bell. Chapter 100. Although the house is not comfortable to live in, the family atmosphere here is really good, and there are large gardens and wilderness where you can play freely. Most importantly, there are Ginny, Ron, Fred, George, and Cedric here. Lu Sen has a lot of fun here every day. After many improvements, the performance of the flight backpack has gradually improved. In order to increase power and stability, Lu Sen simply made 2 sets to wear. One in front and one in the back. Double the power. As the design progressed, it started to deviate and now looked more like a breastplate. So Lu Sen decided to go all out and added stronger protection and magic resistance. It was made into a flying armor. At the same time, a retractable red cape was integrated behind the armor. Not only can it increase flight stability, but the cape is also added with magic similar to a flying carpet. The flying power is improved again. Even if the flying armor fails, the cape can continue to fly. After a few days of excitement, Lu Sen couldn't sit still again. It was rare that the 4 members of the scientific research team had so much time. So Lu Sen's fear of insufficient firepower came back. It just so happened that my uncle got a large number of real guns from the Russians. Lu Sen begged for a batch in the name of research, and the equipment was instantly upgraded. The research materials went directly from toy guns to real guns. Of course, such a dangerous thing cannot be played with openly. At the twins' suggestion, they set their sights on Mr. Weasley's warehouse. They planned to dig a huge basement under the warehouse to build a secret experimental base. The twins have been wanting to do this for a long time. They spend all day researching prank products and magic fireworks, and they really need a place like this. Several people hit it off and started the secret operation. Of course, their magic level is not as high as that of the professors, so it is unlikely that they can use transfiguration to transport a large amount of soil like the professors do. Those who rely on their transfiguration or levitation spells may have to perform them hundreds or even thousands of times. The few of them had successful examples of magic guns before, so of course they wouldn't go about digging the soil with magic shots one by one. They directly created several multi-shot magic guns that combined the Earth Collapse spell and the powerful cleansing spell. With one shot, a half-meter-sized hole will instantly appear in the soil layer. The soil inside will be automatically cleaned. Coupled with the continuous firing design, the efficiency of digging holes is amazing. Considering the risk of landslides caused by deep digging of soil, Lu Sen carefully drew an underground construction map. Not only do you have to avoid soft places like ponds, but you must also be careful not to collapse the burial ground. At the same time as the digging artifact was created, a magic gun that integrated a reinforcement spell and a leveling spell was also created. After each tunnel is dug, the wall of the tunnel should be processed immediately. And a certain number of pillars should be reserved at the designed position for support. All of this was done in secret, neither the Weasleys nor Ginny Percy could know about it. Percy was easy to deal with, as he stayed in the house all day without going out, but Ginny was a problem. To Lu Sen's surprise, the arduous task of keeping confidentiality fell on him. Why did you ask me to get rid of Ginny? Can you three understand the blueprints I drew? And you are Ginny's brothers. Lu Sen complained helplessly. He also wanted to dig. Such a fun thing directly awakened the flower-growing bloodline deep in his soul. The twins and Ron looked at each other, and Fred spread his hands and said, "Brother, haven't you realized yet? My little sister's family status is not comparable to ours." George also patted Lu Sen's shoulder and said, "Do you think she will listen to what we say? That will be counterproductive. So Lu Sen, thank you for your hard work. Go ahead, young man. Even if you have to use the beauty trap, you have to control Ginny, this unstable factor. I'm rooting for you, bro." Just like that, Lu Sen reluctantly accepted the reality and knocked on Ginny's door after the Weasleys went to work. Ginny poked her head out and blushed. She pushed her fiery red hair behind her ears with her hands and asked nervously, "Are you going to play Quidditch? Or, go play in the garden?" Lu Sen looked at the uneasy Ginny with amusement. He had long discovered that this girl was the kind of girl who was very relaxed on her phone, but always nervous and shy when meeting people. It was quite a cute contrast. Bang! Ginny hit Lu Sen on the arm and said angrily, "What are you laughing at? If you laugh again, I'll spank you." Lu Sen was thinking about how to kidnap, cross out, him and take him away alone without arousing suspicion, when suddenly there was a slight vibration from under the house. Ginny seemed to have noticed something, and walked out of the room in confusion, shouting behind Lu Sen, "Fred! George! What kind of crappy research are you doing?" But she didn't know that the mischievous duo was not in the house at all, but was digging underground with Ron. Lu Sen quickly stopped Ginny, and then broke into the boudoir in the other's horrified eyes. Ginny quickly reached out to stop him, but it was too late. Lu Sen stepped in. "Ah! Excuse me. There shouldn't be anything I can't see, right? I'd better close my eyes." Although Lu Sen said this and made a gesture of no, no, with his hands, his eyes were still wandering all the time. Ginny's face was covered with red clouds and there was almost steam coming out of her head. She lowered her voice and said fiercely, You! How can you just walk into a girl's room? I'm going to call you brother." Lu Sen had a victorious smile on his face, and Ginny completely forgot what happened just now. In fact, he didn't look at anything else. He didn't even dare to look at the other person's bed or wardrobe. He just glanced at the posters on the wall. "Hey? You put up a Quidditch poster too. What team is this?" Ginny's nervousness suddenly subsided when she saw that the other party was studying her favorite team. You don't even know this team. This is the Holy Head Harpies. They are much better than the Chudley Cannons. Lu Sen made an expression of disbelief and asked questions about the poster. Ginny showed considerable enthusiasm when talking about her favorite team, and became the talkative and straightforward girl in the phone again. Just then, another shaking sound came from under his feet. Lu Sen took the lead and said, "Ginny, let's go out and play." Ginny's puzzled look was instantly retracted, and she simply replied, "Okay. Then I'll go call Fred and George. So that they won't tear down the house." Lu Sen broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly stopped Ginny. "Actually, I want to go out with you alone. Just the two of us." Ginny's face turned slightly red, and she coughed to keep calm. "Ahem. Then, what are we going to play?" "Whatever, as long as we play alone, it's fine." Seeing that the blush on Ginny's face was spreading to her neck, Lu Sen thought to himself, "Oh no. What is this girl thinking? Let's go for a walk in the woods," he suggested hastily. Ginny responded in a voice as thin as a mosquito. After leaving the burial ground, Lu Sen deliberately bypassed the warehouse and kept finding topics to attract the little girl's attention. Finally, he managed to trick Ginny into, crossed out, and bring her to the distant woods without any danger, and Lu Sen immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He took out a tablecloth, snacks and drinks from his backpack, and he and Ginny lay comfortably under the shade of the tree. Not knowing what to talk about, Lu Sen began to tell a story. Once upon a time, there was a place called Middle-earth, where lived a group of carefree hobbits. They were hard-working, kind, and loved everything that grew from the soil. The house they lived in was called Bag End. When he was talking about the white-robed wizard Gandalf, who was beating the orcs with a staff in one hand and a sword in the other, his cell phone rang. "Help, Lu Sen. Come quickly. It's Ron."